Their powerful hiring platform helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates all in one place. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
News brought to you by Gingras Thompson and Wachs, your personal injury attorneys with over 35 years of experience. GTWlawyers.com. They're all in to win.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane McNair. Here's what you need to know. A 14-year-old girl killed in a crash early Sunday morning. St. Francis police reported a car being driven over 100 miles an hour on 794 around 2 a.m. Minutes later, officers sent to 794 in Pennsylvania Avenue. The car was found flipped over on the embankment. The 17-year-old driver was performing CPR on the 14-year-old who'd been ejected. First responders continued those efforts but weren't successful. 2 others treated at a local hospital for minor injuries. The driver later arrested for OWI. Milwaukee Bucks forward Wesley Matthews teaming up with Madison Public Schools Foundation to raise a minimum of $250,000 to cover the gap between what Madison schools' budgets can cover and what they need to offer up-to-date PE classes and make it easier for kids to afford being involved in sports. Matthews played sports at Madison Memorial. He's seeding the fund with $50,000 of his own money and matching up to an additional $50,000. I'm Jane McNair. This is Civic Media News.
Accidents can be life-changing, no matter how careful you are. But with Gingras Thompson and Wachs, you're not alone. For decades, they've been fighting for the rights of people just like you. They'll let you focus on your recovery while they handle the legal complexities. If you or a loved one has been hurt or killed due to someone else's negligence, contact them now. You may deserve compensation.
All into it, Gingras Thompson and Wachs, GTWlawyers.com.
Civic Media isn't just another broadcast company.
We're your neighbors. We bleed green and gold.
And we love nothing more than to help fellow Wisconsinites succeed.
Whether your business wants to advertise to your local community or the entire state, Civic Media can help. Find out more at civicmedia.us.
We're all familiar with the 3 whats. What is it? What can it do for me? And what does it cost? At Country Financial, we can help you find the answers with insurance coverage to help protect what's most important to you, all at a price you can afford. So while you're juggling work and kids while trying to keep an eye on your future, we'll make sure we're one of the first ones there when you need us most. What should you do next? Call Matthew Holbrook, your Country Financial representative at 414-332-2137 and chat about your insurance needs today. 414-332-2137.
North Shore Healthcare is hiring. As the largest provider of post-acute care in Wisconsin, they offer skilled nursing and assisted living services, as well as home health and hospice care through North Shore at Home. They're looking for compassionate individuals who want to make a difference in the lives of those they serve. If you're a CNA, licensed nurse, administrator, or business professional,
It's great to be here to speak directly to the woke mob.
The liberals have basically made up this whole agenda that guacamole is made of avocados. It's not the truth.
Ticked off, tee off. This is it.
Scobity bobo. Scobity dog.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
Would you boycott vacationing somewhere because of the politics of that place? 844-967-2789. Would you pick where you, would you not go somewhere? Be like, I'm not going, let's say, Florida.
Ah, what an interesting choice.
Would you not go to Florida because of the politics that are happening there? 844-967-2789. That is 844-96-PARTY. That is our question to kick off today's show, Monday, May 22nd, a week from Memorial Day.
Hard to believe.
Whew. Because I ask, because over the weekend, the NAACP became the latest civil rights group to advise Americans against visiting Florida. And they are not alone. But this is, they said that, this is the NAACP said that Florida lawmakers are openly hostile towards Black Americans, other people of color, and the LGBTQIA plus community. And this comes just days after the League of United Latin American Citizens, also known as LULAC, issued a travel advisory for Florida after DeSantis signed new immigration laws that would require hospitals to get a patient's immigration info and require employers to ensure workers are documented. So,
and that's already causing some problems.
Oh yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah. But it just, and I don't want to just say Florida. If you were someone who's conservative, do you not go to New York or California for these reasons? I would say I someday would love to go to Russia. I'm not boycotting Russia. I just don't want to be an American in Russia these days.
Which I think is wise.
And so I just thought it would be interesting to get your thoughts on how much do the politics of a place factor into your decisions when you're planning a vacation. 844-967-2789.
Stacy from Waukesha joining us. Hey, Stacy, thanks so much for calling. What do you think?
Hi, how you doing? You could not pay me to go to Florida.
Really?
You know, my husband and I discuss this often. We travel quite a bit. And yeah, even if we want a free trip, there's no way. They are not getting my travel dollars at all.
And is that the reason? Because I think there's, to a certain extent, there's some people who probably don't feel safe. Like I would imagine trans people, there's people who are starting to not feel safe in Florida. But for you, it's just because I'm not giving them my money.
Right. Well, that and the people down there drive terribly. I used to live in the suburbs of Chicago, and they drive worse than the people in Chicago. And it's not because of old people. It's very frightening.
That's so funny that you say that, though, Stacy, because one of my sisters and my brother-in-law lived in a gated community for about 5 years. They talked about how bad people drove within that gated community on their golf carts.
Well, see, that's another reason not to go to Florida.
That's so funny.
Seriously, you know, they have the gates that go up and down. She said they have to replace them like 5 times a month because people just crash through them. It was nuts. It was just nuts. And she talked too about how the roads are awful. There's only 2 main roads in and out of Florida, so the traffic is always nuts. Yeah, I'm with you, Stacey. You couldn't pay me to go to Florida.
No. Nope.
Well, thanks for the call.
Texas, but I have no
or
desire to go.
Texas.
Or Texas. I'm right there with you on that. We've talked about this. One of my closest friends lives in Texas, and I've told her I'm not going until they get rid of permitless concealed carry. I think it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
it's too scary.
Thank you so much for calling, Stacy. 844-967-2789, 844-96-PARTY. Would you boycott vacationing somewhere because of the political atmosphere?
And I'm trying to think. It's interesting because I haven't gone to. We flew through Florida when we went on our honeymoon, but we didn't. We actually were supposed to go to Disney World because we were going to have a layover, and then the hurricane was coming.
Oh yeah.
No, not the big one, but the one that ended up not being that big of a deal. So we ended up not going. But I'm trying to think now, like, because my brother is toyed with the idea of potentially moving to South Beach as he tries to figure out where he wants to move next. And I'm like, well, if you move there, I feel like I would visit you. But and it kind of like just thought this morning, I was like, because right now I have no reason to go to Florida. If I want to go somewhere warm, I would rather go to the Caribbean and one of those, like one of the islands, and support them than go to Florida. But that was just because I feel like those are culturally more interesting than Florida. So,
well, and I think, and we've talked about this before as well, with snowbirds having their second homes down there. Every day I keep seeing more stories about the rising cost of insurance in Florida, like a 50% increase, which is nuts. And I hate to be the one to point this out, but these weather disasters seem unlikely to lessen.
Yes.
If you live near the water, if you live, South Beach seems like a bad idea.
Well, but it's so interesting because what's hard for me to wrap my head around is that Texas and Florida increasingly have unpopular culture war laws being signed into bills being signed into law by their kind of extreme governors. And yet they're two of the most rapidly, like the places most, like so many people are moving to. The last couple of years, their population keeps like increasing and increasing and increasing. And so that people in this state will point to people in this state who are arguing that they want to eliminate the income tax will point to that's why people are moving there. And who knows? It could be the warmer weather, it could be income tax, it could be because there's new jobs there. But ultimately, like the combination of climate change and Florida having parts of it, probably some of the most beautiful parts, being underwater, being more and more susceptible to hurricanes, but also just the heat in general. And are people going to start moving if they really don't feel safe there? I mean, we haven't talked about this on the show before, but Dwayne Wade, former NBA player, married to Gabrielle Union, former Marquette player, they're very open. They have a trans daughter who they're leaving. They're leaving Florida because they can't get on board. And obviously they have the resources that's not a hard sell for them.
Right. Which is not the case for a lot of people.
Yeah. But
well, they're in Florida. They have already passed it or are going to pass a bill where trans kids can be taken away from their parents if they treat them, if they get treatment for them. This seems completely opposite to parents' rules, parents' rights. No, we don't like that health care that you're choosing for your child, so we're taking your kid away from you. Screw your parents' rights.
But they think it's child abuse.
Even though,
because to them it'd be the same thing. It's like parentals, like to them. I'm sure the argument is, as a parent, you don't have the right to abuse your children or starve your children in the different ways that CPS gets involved. They see it as child abuse. I mean, that has to be the argument, right? Because otherwise, how do you justify it?
Well, right. 844-967-2789, 844-96-PARTY. Would you not vacation in Florida or Texas or New York or California because you don't like the political climate?
Or other countries.
Yeah, that's
I mean, and it's different. There's a difference between safety and feeling like I am not going to go to parts of Mexico where the cartel is really is a stronghold.
Right.
Or, for me, like, I'm not going to Russia anytime soon. Like, there's a difference between not going because your safety concerns versus not going because you don't want to give them your money. You don't want to give them your tourist dollars. And there's plenty of other places to go. And there really are plenty of other places to go. But I'm also interested in how many people there's just like, they don't even think about it.
Oh, I think there's a fair amount of people that don't care. They do their annual spring break trip to Florida. They do their annual whatever camping trip to the Keys. Sure, there's going to be a ton of people, I think, who aren't going to let that faze them at all.
And it'll be interesting to see, because as we said, if you're just joining us, this question comes from the fact that multiple groups, including the NAACP and LULAC, which is the League of United Latin American Citizens, have issued basically travel advisories for Florida and saying that you should not go there.
It's not a friendly place.
It's not a friendly place and they're openly hostile towards Black Americans, other people of color, LGBTQ community, which they're proving to be. And so, of course, this is on the heels of, not the heels, I guess it's right before everyone's expecting Ron DeSantis to announce this week.
Right.
But I guess his office has called these advisories, quote, a stunt.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But it'll be interesting to see if this has any effect, because the fact is tourism brought in more than $101 billion in 2021 for Florida.
And think about the fact that Disney just pulled a $1 billion deal off the table.
Yeah, but that wouldn't have done anything for tourism.
But certainly it's going to affect, that was going to employ a whole bunch of people, and you would have had a whole bunch of people move there.
Yeah, it was going to move jobs. It was going to move like 2,000 jobs.
Right.
And so, and I don't think that Galactic Starship $1,200 per 2 nights thing. I don't know if there's enough there, since that's closing. I don't know if there's enough people to really have that be the ding as far as, but if they moved Disney World, That would be
That would
that
be
would
massive.
be because I'm like, if you think about $100 billion in tourism in 2021, which means like we're still like pretty pandemic-y. And so I'm wondering, like in 2019, was it significantly more than that? I don't know. Super interesting. All right. Well, when we come back, we would still love to hear from you. Would you boycott vacationing somewhere because of politics?
And not just Republican states.
Yes, and we're not just specifically talking about Florida, but just is that a factor when you're deciding where to spend your money on and where to go? 844-96-PARTY. That's 844-967-2789. We'll be back right after the break.
If I can make it there, I'm gonna make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York, New York.
Real Chili's been serving up mouth-watering goodness to the people of Milwaukee since 1931. Their famous secret award-winning chili recipe is the same as it was back then and a local treasure. From lunch to dinner to late-night breakfast, Real Chili has you covered. And now you can bring the Real Chili to your next party, tailgate, wedding, or office gathering with their unbeatable catering options. And don't forget about their Real Love Party Packs, perfect for small groups, and pick up from their 2 convenient locations, downtown Milwaukee and near Marquette University campus. Visit them at realchili.com. That's realchili.com. Let Mike Crivello's Camera Center help you start your family photo album by turning your digital images into gorgeous 4x6-inch prints on 2 for Tuesday. Buy 1 print, get the second free, up to 100 prints. In-store only at 181st and Blue Mound.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page or Squarespace, or Google My Business or WordPress? But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
We've all felt left out. And for people who move to this country, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. A mix of clouds and sun this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 79. South winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Lows around 52. Tonight, partly cloudy skies again tomorrow. High temperatures reach up to 82. Dry with temps well below average Wednesday and Thursday and highs in the low 60s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently,
We're down to Florida. We welcome you to the Sunshine State. They're kicking back and soaking up the rays every day in Florida.
I mean, that song kind of makes me want to go.
It's well, right? You can with palm trees swaying and people in swimsuits on roller skates. And sure, why not?
Welcome back. We are asking you, would you boycott vacationing somewhere because of politics? 844-967-2789. And we're asking that question because a handful of civil rights groups are warning tourists about Florida in the wake of hostile laws. And in case you haven't been keeping count, it's May. It's almost the end of May. And DeSantis has already signed 80 new laws.
80.
80. 80, not 18. 80 new laws this year alone in 2023.
How has he managed to find the time in between flying on donors' planes to all these various campaign stops all over the country promoting his book?
His book, and obviously, there's actually, I've read this morning, there is, if you're interested, at DeSantis Jet.
Oh, this is great.
Which is Ron DeSantis's jet tracking. So it's tracking his private jet, basically as he's campaigning.
Pretty much.
That is a good point, though. It's like he's a busy guy between how much they actually are pushing through quickly in the state while he's also promoting his book and campaigning and spending all this time in Iowa. Productivity, man.
Well, the one thing he didn't do in the midst of all of this was visit the areas of Florida that had been so catastrophically flooded earlier this year.
He
never went.
He never went?
He never went.
I thought he was getting credit kind of at as everything was happening, that he actually was acting like a normal person instead of a partisan hack.
Well, that might be true, but I don't believe he ever went and visited those areas in Florida that flooded. And talking about the insurance and property insurance in Florida, insurers are fleeing that state. So when you talk about people moving there because there's no income tax for the savings, isn't that a 40% hike in your property insurance rates? Isn't that going to kind of negate not having income tax? I don't see how that's
unless you rent.
How that's a plus. And in Texas too, and I know that the population in Texas is growing. We'll see what happens to their power grid over the summer.
When it's so hot.
And even in Arizona, I saw over the weekend, they are warning people about upcoming extreme temperatures. It's only the middle of May. And they're expecting super, super hot weather in Arizona.
I mean, I think this summer is going to be, what is it? Super El Nino?
Yeah.
Is coming. And so we may, and actually that's something interesting to get into the next segment as far as WPR put an article out last week as far as kind of investigating, could Wisconsin and the Midwest and the Rust Belt be a climate haven, as it sometimes has been called. And I think at least what I got from that article is like, yes, but like, yes, it's going to be less bad here, but that doesn't mean there's not going to still be changes and floods and warmer temperatures here. It's just since we're starting cooler, and maybe also think is like, you know how like the middle of Canada is basically like the bush of Australia, like no one really lives there,
right?
Like, is that going to be the migration of areas that are right now way too cold for anyone to actually want to live there year round and not developed and don't have infrastructure? But how much does that change as far as people just moving north, further and further north as things get hotter and hotter?
Well, and look at Alberta, Canada, which has those massive wildfires going on, which is why we have such hazy skies right now, because of the smoke from those wildfires. And Alberta's pretty far up there.
Have you been?
I have. It's beautiful.
I would imagine
Alberta's
it's beautiful.
Just beautiful. But tons and tons of forests and tons of trees. And is there going to be any safe place to go?
I don't know. And so anyways, we'll talk more about that in the next segment, but it's amazing to me when you actually take it into like, when you look at the complete list of what Ron DeSantis has done, not only in this term and his last term, but even just this spring. Like, maybe this is a controversial thing to say, but like, I think having him, the prospect of having him as president, it's like starting to become more terrifying than another Trump.
I don't disagree with you. I find the prospects of either of them being the president of the United States absolutely terrifying. But DeSantis does seem better organized.
Which actually makes him scarier.
Well, yeah. And with everything that's been going on, and he's been able to pass all this legislation, and maybe this is the way it happens all the time, but it just sounds like someone else is crafting these things for him and they just bring them to him and he signs them frequently in the middle of the night.
At least with the 6-week abortion ban.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, when we come back, we'll list off some of the things that he's gotten done in a short period of time. But I also would love your thoughts on who, as Ron DeSantis preps to announce this week, knowing how much he's gotten done, and granted, he would not necessarily have a supermajority. Like, he's working with a supermajority in Florida.
Right.
So a lot of these things are getting pushed through fast. And certainly we all know that the federal government does not work that fast.
Expeditiously.
Even in the time when Biden had both chambers, when Trump had both chambers, they didn't get 80 bills passed, right? So like it still wouldn't be as quick, but like There's a part of me that looks at what Ron DeSantis has done in such a short period of time in Florida that's like, this guy seems way scarier. And maybe not way scarier, but like, to me, how effective he's been has been versus, like you said, Trump's chaotic. He changes his mind. He doesn't really have a plan.
Except when it's all about him.
It's all about him, but it's not really this. He kind of just says what is beneficial versus, oh, we're executing a strategy to totally upend people's rights because of the war on woke. So let us know. Who's scarier, Trump or DeSantis? 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY, and we will be right back.
Kicking back and soaking up the rains every day in Florida. It's like a Caribbean holiday every day in Florida. It's like a Caribbean holiday every day in Florida. It's like a Caribbean.
Keeping Southeast Wisconsin informed, engaged, and entertained. This is The Shaw, 540 AM and 101.1 FM, WAUK.
CBS News brief. President Biden is set to hold a face-to-face meeting today with House Speaker McCarthy on the debt ceiling. CBS News correspondent Nancy Cordes.
Sources say the White House is now offering to keep spending flat from this year to next. Republicans, they say, want to increase defense spending while cutting everything else by up to 22%.
South Carolina Republican Senator Tim Scott's hitting New Hampshire and Iowa with ads as he gets into the presidential race.
I see that America is starving for positive, optimistic leadership. I want to provide that alternative.
In Idaho, it's a day in court for Brian Koberger, the man charged with killing 4 college students last year. CBS's Lilia Luciano is covering.
The accused killer is expected to enter into that courthouse and plead not guilty. Several of the family members of at least one of the victims will also be there.
The Dow is down 58. This is CBS News.
News brought to you by Gingras, Thompson & Wachs, your personal injury attorneys dedicated to helping you get the justice you deserve. GTWlawyers.com. They're all in to win.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell. Here's what you need to know. The U.S. could go into default on June 1st if stalled debt ceiling talks don't make progress. Wisconsin Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin says default has to be off the table.
It hurts real people. The economic consequences, interest rates, increasing the downgrading of our credit rating as a nation, very, very serious matters.
Baldwin on Upfront on Channel 12 in Milwaukee yesterday. Republicans are pushing for spending cuts in exchange for helping raise the nation's borrowing limit. A Madison teenager is looking at federal computer hacking charges. Investigators say Joseph Garrison stole $600,000 from people on online gambling websites. Garrison could spend close to 60 years in prison. In sports, the Red Hot Astros bring their 7-game winning streak to Milwaukee tonight. I'm Terry Bell, and this is Civic Media News.
Accidents can be life-changing, no matter how careful you are. But with Gingras, Thompson & Wachs, you're not alone. For decades, they've been fighting for the rights of people just like you. They'll let you focus on your recovery while they handle the legal complexities. If you or a loved one has been hurt or killed due to someone else's negligence, contact them now. You may deserve compensation.
All in to win. Gingras, Thompson & Wachs. GTWlawyers.com.
Feeling down, anxious, depressed? You are not alone. According to the World Health Organization, approximately 280 million people have depression, but the majority never receive treatment. At WellPoint Care Network, they can help. Their outpatient clinic staff are both qualified and caring, not to mention highly trained in partnering with you on your healing journey. Make an appointment today at wellpointcare.org. They serve all ages, infants, children, and adults. Both in-person and virtual services are available. Learn more at wellpointcare.org.
Harvey High is now in session. Today's subjects: biology.
Name an animal with the long neck.
Dinosaur, long neck, yeah.
Let me ask you something. When last time you seen one?
Anatomy.
Name a part of Steve Harvey that a woman might want to kiss.
Your six-pack.
The six-pack. Does she know who Steve Harvey is? You got to dig for it, but it's in there.
Get schooled with Family Feud.
Weeknights at 6 and 6:30 on CW18.
North Shore Healthcare is hiring. As the largest provider of post-acute care in Wisconsin, they offer skilled nursing and assisted living services, as well as home health and hospice.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Madnair, and we are talking about, well, we're talking about a couple different things. We are talking about how much politics plays a role into where you choose to vacation, and knowing that that's a difference between safety and I don't want to give this place my money.
Right.
And sometimes those two things can overlap, but I want to acknowledge that there's places that may be safe for me to go that are not safe for other people to go. And so that is a different question than me opting in to say, I don't want to spend my money there.
Right.
But when we were also talking about, as we wait for Ron DeSantis, or I also heard, I think it was on Wait, Don't Tell Me from this past week, where someone made a joke that they just so badly want there to be a drag queen named Rhonda Santis.
Oh.
And I was like, that's pretty good. It's so obvious. It's just sitting right there.
It is.
It's right there.
Boy, can't believe nobody's done that yet.
I know. Which is, I mean, the picture already exists, right? Of there was that AI viral
yes.
of all the different pictures of the super anti-LGBT and right-wing, like Clarence Thomas and Ron DeSantis and Trump, all recreated as drag queens.
It was quite something.
Pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But in looking at what Ron DeSantis has done this year alone, it's like, I also am asking the question for people listening, and maybe you like one of these two already, but for people who are certainly not planning to vote for the Republican, no matter who they are, who is scarier at this point? Because we already know what a Trump presidency could look like because we had it for 4 years. But also looking at, I mean, basically Ron DeSantis should have his slogan be "Make Florida, make America Florida" again, of like what he wants to do. So this is a small fraction of what he's done. The 6-week abortion ban. So in April, he signed a law that bans abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy.
Which he signed in the middle of the night. And now even when he goes to talk to pro-life groups, he doesn't bring it up. I know. Ha.
So now they're one of the most restrictive states for reproductive rights in the country. Then banning transition care for minors. So in mid-May, so just a week ago, he was finalizing his candidacy for president, but then he also signed a measure outlawing gender transition care for minors and restricting it for adults. The latest action by Republicans this year aimed at LGBTQ communities in Florida. It imposed a penalty of up to 5 years in prison for doctors who violate the ban and requires adults seeking gender transition care to sign a consent form. And one of the bill's most contentious aspects is language that says a court could temporarily remove children from their homes if they receive gender-affirming care.
I just want to stop for 1 second. So adults who are getting treated either hormonally or however to transition have to sign something that says they consent to this care? They're adults. Doesn't that, if they seek it, doesn't that automatically mean they
I'm
are
consenting to this? I know.
treatment?
I know.
Or does he just want a record of the people who are
probably
who have transitioned or are transitioning?
Probably.
That sounds more accurate.
He also put his signature on bills punishing businesses that admit minors to adult live performances, such as drag shows, and making it a misdemeanor trespassing offense for people who use bathrooms in public buildings that do not correspond to their sex at birth.
And so are there going to be genital examinations as women go in to use bathrooms? How's that going to work?
I know. Because I think about that when you think about people who have trans men who have transitioned and pass as cis men, right? And I've seen whether it's TikToks or people who have testified in front of different state legislatures who look like men. And they're like, do you really want me using bathrooms with your wives and daughters? Like, what is this, what does this look like? And so that's on LGBTQ trans issues. On education, he gave his seal of approval in May to a bill prohibiting public school employees from calling students pronouns other than those matching their gender at birth. This expanded the 1-year-old state law, which critics have referred to as "Don't Say Gay." He also left another conservative imprint on Florida's education system when he signed legislation banning public universities and colleges in the state from spending money on diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Oh, sounds like who's else? Isn't there someone in Wisconsin trying to do that?
That does sound familiar.
Mm-hmm. The teaching of identity politics, long a preoccupation of right-wing Republicans, is prohibited at public institutions under the law, which also weakened tenure protections. And in March, he gave conservatives another trophy, creating a universal school voucher program. And so it's an $8,000 per year benefit per student, which would arguably undermine public schools and further enrich wealthy families because it does not have an income eligibility cap.
Great.
He also banned the AP course for African American Studies. Death penalty. We're not even done yet. In April, Mr. DeSantis signed a bill that will substantially lower the threshold for imposing the death penalty.
Oh, that's right.
It will no longer require a unanimous vote by 12 members of a jury to sentence a person to die. An 8-4 majority would be enough under the new law, which is expected to face legal challenges from criminal justice reform groups.
Well, that's a relief because no one has ever been unfairly convicted of something and spent decades and decades in prison for a crime it was ultimately determined they did not commit.
Or actually be killed for a crime that they didn't commit. And your favorite, concealed carry.
Yeah, which also I believe he signed kind of in the middle of the night and doesn't really want to talk about that because it's not popular.
The governor signed a law in April that allows Floridians to carry concealed weapons without a permit. As of July 1st, gun owners will no longer be required to pass a safety course and a background check, a shift away from calls for tougher gun laws in the state after mass shootings in 2018 in Parkland and 2016 at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. And obviously there's all the Disney stuff. That feels less of like, I don't know how that's going to play out, but it still is just like, why are you spending your energy on going against one of the biggest companies in the world?
Well,
that employs thousands of people and brings billions of dollars to your state. Like, why is this the hill that you're going to die on besides just being like thin-skinned and not being able to take an L?
And I just find it the pinnacle of irony that the party of small government, the Republicans, now are going to force you to support their policies. You can't dissent against their policies. They're going to make you, or they will punish you because that's free enterprise.
I mean, and that's the thing where I've heard even most people who are true conservatives saying like, this is not what this is not how we typically fall on the free markets scale.
Didn't used to be.
As far as like this, even on that one, I think there's a lot of people who are kind of like, what? This is not how this is supposed to work when it comes to letting private companies be private companies.
And can I just remind folks, in Florida, they banned the Diary of Anne Frank. They banned the book, The Diary of Anne Frank. Wrap your head around that.
He also mandated that employers with 25 or more employees use E-Verify, a federal government database used to check Social Security Administration and Department of Homeland Security records to see if a person is authorized to work in the United States. He also banned local governments from issuing ID cards to undocumented immigrants and required hospitals to collect data on healthcare costs associated with that population, which is also causing issues now because there's a lot of construction sites that are just empty. and there's
Because-
no one there to work.
Right. And there are even truck drivers who don't want to go into Florida now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out over the rest of this year. What's happening down there?
And then finally, Mr. DeSantis signed a law in May to shield from the public from the public records of his travel, including out-of-state political trips. The measure, which Republicans and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement claimed was needed for security reasons, will create a veil of secrecy over who is paying for the travel of Mr. DeSantis and how he is dividing his time as governor and as a presidential candidate. Even Mr. Trump has latched onto that issue, saying in a statement from his campaign in April that Mr. DeSantis, also known as Meatball Ron, was not being transparent about how much taxpayer money he was spending on travel. And that's a short list of what Ron DeSantis has been able to do in 2023.
Well, and isn't it a fair assumption then that should he be elected president, he would enact the same kind of thing, that the public doesn't get to know what I do and what I'm doing with your money and where I'm going and on whose private jet I'm flying? None of your business. I'm president.
That would seem, all of this
Right?
indicates that he, it's very dictator-esque. And so that's what I mean. Like, as far as I feel like he's a scarier prospect to me than even Trump is. And he's younger.
Yes, he is considerably younger, although he made an appearance, a campaign appearance somewhere. I don't remember where he was over the weekend that kept showing up on my Twitter feed. And apparently he has all of the personality of a wet piece of dough.
Well, I also heard that people, as he's going to get more and more, because he really won't take interviews. And as I think this was on the Bulwark. So it was either Tim Miller or Charlie Sykes talking about this on one of their latest podcasts of how he's trying to act like a lizard person. It's like, oh, look at me. I am the lizard king. And and everything is so forced as far as he saw the Trump playbook of appealing to a certain base that gets riled up about owning the libs and woke culture and all of this, and is so far doubling down on appealing to them, even though he is not of their ilk, really. I don't know if this is true or not, but it's just his inauthenticity as far as trying to be this guy and kind of like puppeteering around in a suit that he's this guy, but he's not really. And like, how much will this start to fall apart under the scrutiny and like unending media attention you get when you are running for president?
Yeah, but if you never put yourself in a position where you have to take any unfriendly questions, how often?
But you don't get to do that when you're running for president.
Trump's not going to do any of the debates. They didn't ask me.
But if he wants to get over Trump, he's going to have to.
You would think so, but I don't know.
How else does he get his numbers up and get the amount of attention as to compete with an ex-president and someone as famous as Trump without getting as much media as he can?
That's a good question. But I can't imagine his handlers want him. They're just going to really screen who gets to ask questions then. They're not going to leave him unprepared and unprotected.
Yeah. All right. Well, we didn't even get to the
PFAS.
The PFAS. There's a new bill that for $125 million to address PFAS in Wisconsin, but doesn't really say how that would be spent. And so maybe we'll talk more about that tomorrow instead. But also it was interesting, as we said in the last segment, of the idea that Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, we could all be climate havens. And so I was interested in exploring that a little bit more too, but we will save both of those for tomorrow instead, because we're going to end this hour when we come back with some lighter Wisconsin news and headlines. Stick around. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
rushing water, flooding through my brain. This is the sound of God's own daughter, calling out your name. Squeeze it to the water, flooding through your brain. Squeeze it to the water, flooding through your brain.
Hey, this is Lindsay Kindred at 540 WAUK The Shaw. At Civic Media, we love our local communities and want to share your stories. Submit your local event and we'll let our listeners know. Email me, Lindsay Kindred, at info@civicmedia.us. That's info@civicmedia.us.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey everybody, how we doing? I'm Charlie Barons, inviting you to join me Saturdays and/or Sundays at noon. It's a horse apiece, whatever you decide. We're doing the Cripes Cast, where we talk to people for and/or from the Midwest, and it's more fun than a six-pack of Jolly Good. Okay, the pride of Random Lake, that Jolly Good is. Anyway, it's on your Civic Media station and the Civic Media app. And do me a favor, tell your folks I says hi. Okay, real good.
Did you know your favorite shows and hosts are active on social media too? Find Civic Media on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook and be part of the conversation happening there. And go to our website, civicmedia.us, to learn more about the Civic Media Network.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Partly cloudy skies this afternoon with highs around 79. Southeasterly winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies again tonight, lows around 52. High temperatures reach up to 82. Tomorrow, sunshine mixed with clouds at times. Dry with temps well below average Wednesday and Thursday, and highs in the low 60s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 72 degrees.
From ours. 'Cause the road's my middle name. Well, it's hard enough to love someone when they're right close at home. Don't you think I know it's hard, honey? Squeezing sugar from the phone.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Madnair. And we are rounding out our Monday first hour newsy hour with some fun headlines. A little while back, we interviewed Cassandra Berger, who was is the Quick Trip girl.
Yes.
And it sounds like she has some competition.
Oh, look out.
Whit Meza, which is a great name. Whit Meza set a new hot bar Wednesday morning when she parked her Harley Davidson at the pump at the Egg Harbor Road location of Quick Trip in Sturgeon Bay. With a 13-cent fill-up complete and receipt secured, Meza completed an epic quest with a K, to visit all 503 Quick Trip stores in Wisconsin, plus as many others as she could in neighboring states. A 4,500-mile journey completed in just 11 days. That is a lot of Quick Trips in not a lot of time. Because I feel like when Cassandra did this, she did it over the course of like a year and a half.
It took a while. I mean, they're all over the state.
They're all over the state. Who is the time?
And the mileage.
But I guess if you're on a Harley and you're like, that's kind of your shtick, is like, I just ride around on my bike. But it's 503. I mean, how much do you even spend? I guess in her last one at Egg Harbor, she only filled up for 13 cents.
Oh my God.
But yeah, it's I wonder if she'll get a deal with Quick Trip just like Cassandra did.
That would be wise.
But she is a self-professed Quick Trip superfan, and she said her 2022 summary of Quick Trip activity got her thinking about how she could level up in 2023. She found an answer to her other passion in life, endurance motorcycling, long-distance rides, generally involving riding at least 1,000 miles in 24 hours.
Oh, man.
Are you a motorcycle person?
I had a bike.
You did have a bike, so you had a license.
I did.
That doesn't surprise me.
I was terrible.
Oh, you were not a good driver.
I was uneasy rider. I was not a good motorcycle rider. I would have so much anxiety the night before I knew I was taking it out, I couldn't sleep. Because don't forget, my father was a mortician.
Yeah.
And there would be dinners when we'd be sitting around the dinner table and he would be talking about someone who was in a terrible motorcycle accident. And Dad would say, "Oh, was he a mess?"
So what made you want to get it in the first place?
Because I had gone out with friends as a passenger and really enjoyed it and thought, well, there's no reason I can't do this myself. Why don't I get my own license?
Okay.
So I took the course and I went through all of it. It was a wonderful course. And I never, thankfully, hurt anybody or hurt myself, but I just never relaxed. And then it's no fun.
Yeah.
If you can't,
well, also,
if you can't relax, all I would think about when I was driving is how many different things could run out and kill me. Or
so how many times did you end up riding before you're like, never mind, this is too stressful?
Well, I took it on some group rides. I probably rode it a dozen times.
Okay.
And then I sold it.
Because I've been the passenger a fair amount. But yeah, I don't know how I would be as the driver. And I'm sure Debbie Bry would thank me for not ever wanting to be the driver.
I'm sure she would.
Even the passenger, I think, makes her nervous. Because that's the thing. I would imagine being a not confident motorcycle driver is as dangerous as being like a super reckless one.
I would agree with you completely.
And there's something of like, to be a good behind a motorcycle, like you have to be pretty confident and like relaxed.
Yes.
And understand the road, the bike. Because to be super twitchy doesn't really work when you're trying to keep your balance.
And I recognized that on myself and thought, yeah, this isn't good, Jane.
So you're not doing 1,000 miles in 24 hours anytime soon?
That's just brutal.
Good for her, though.
Yeah. I mean, I give her a lot of credit. She's got to have a really good cushy seat or something.
Yeah. Or good cushy
something.
But some biking shorts with a padding in the crotch.
With chaps on.
Oh, well, then also I saw this headline. So the Trade Hotel, so the new hotel that they've been building next to the Fiserv.
Yeah.
So I've said this before on the show, but if you are newer to the show, my father played basketball for the Badgers. My father is 6'8".
He's really tall.
Pushing 6'9". And for basketball, being that tall is great. For almost everything else in life, being that tall is hard. Finding clothes is hard. Being on airplanes is hard.
Riding in a car is
riding in a car. Like there's a lot of things and including staying at hotels where the shower hits your chest.
Oh gosh.
I'm pretty sure even at our house, I don't know. And I dated a guy briefly in California who was an NBA player, and he had like custom built his house so everything was taller.
Oh my gosh.
So like the cabinets were taller and then the countertops were taller and everything was just a little bit taller, which makes sense in the same way someone who is maybe, a little person who gets his house that is accommodating for their height.
Of course.
But since the Trade Hotel is the official Deer District Fiserv Forum Hotel, which I guess is where going forward teams are going to stay when they come to play the Bucks, everything's taller.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So it's open. The upscale Trade Hotel has opened across the street from Fiserv Forum in the Deer District. It's got a rooftop restaurant, nods to Milwaukee in its design, and higher ceilings and shower heads in fourth floor rooms designed for basketball players and Pete Bry.
And I would imagine longer beds too.
Probably longer beds.
That's got to be a big issue too when you're 6'9" or 7'2".
Yeah. And so
that's really
that was
cool.
Very smart.
Yeah.
But it's also smart. You're like, we don't need to do the whole hotel like this, but we'll just have enough rooms for traveling teams to always be comfortable. And I wonder how many other hotels do that.
We will have to do a Google.
We'll have to do a Google to see how many other hotels have accommodations for the the extra large and the extra tall. So, all right. Well, coming up in the next hour, this is going to be a fun game. The Washington Post has published a quiz or a game that challenges if you think you can tame the national debt. So when we come back, Jane and I are going to play that. You can play along. And then at the bottom of the hour, State Senator Melissa Agard is going to join us to talk about her grassroots tour, which is her tour. She's about halfway through. It's her tour to push for legalization of marijuana in Wisconsin. So she's going to let us know how the tour is going, what she's hearing from people, and maybe any other drama that's happening at the Capitol.
Drama in our state capital?
No way. All right. Well, stick around for the top of the hour news. We will be back in just a minute. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Just like my mama did. I gotta go. I hope you'll understand. Yeah, I love you so. Want you to be my man. I hear it call, baby. Sounds so sweet and plain. I hear it call, baby. Sounds so sweet and plain. I hear it.
Real Chili's been serving up mouth-watering goodness to the people of Milwaukee since 1931. Their famous secret award-winning chili recipe is the same as it was back then and a local treasure. From lunch to dinner to late-night breakfast, Real Chili has you covered. And now you can bring the Real Chili to your next party, tailgate, wedding, or office gathering with their unbeatable catering options. And don't forget about their Real Love party packs, perfect for small groups, and pick up from their 2 convenient locations, downtown Milwaukee and near Marquette University campus. Visit them at realchili.com. That's realchili.com.
You are never far away from your favorite radio station. We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. And if you missed your favorite show or game, listen to a podcast of it anytime on the app or our website, civicmedia.us.
You are listening to The Shaw, WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266DR Waukesha, and always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is the story of a very special.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Steel.
I'm Steve Kathan. A court appearance getting underway right about now for the man charged with killing 4 University of Idaho students last year. 28-year-old Brian Koberger is expected to plead not guilty. Christy Gonsalves will be in court too. Her daughter Kaylee was one of those killed.
He's going to know that we are the Gonsalves family, and he knows, what he did to our daughter. And he's going to feel all of us just staring at the back of his head because he won't even turn around.
Plenty at stake today when President Biden meets with House Speaker McCarthy about the debt ceiling. White House correspondent Stephen Portnoy.
The negotiations are centered on new caps for future spending insisted on by Republicans. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says Democrats are addicted to spending. Democrats argue Republicans are too beholden to the wealthy and large corporations, unwilling to consider higher taxes. The Treasury Secretary warns default, which could happen as soon as June 1st, could plunge the country into a deep recession.
Democratic Senator Tom Carper of Delaware says he will not seek re-election for a 5th term next year. He's the 4th Democratic senator to announce retirement plans. A Senate Republican is launching a presidential campaign today.
The radical left is pushing us into a culture of grievance instead of a culture of greatness.
South Carolina's Tim Scott, the only black Republican in the Senate, now in the race. Arizona, California, and Nevada have proposed a deal to cut their water use from the drought-stricken Colorado River over the next 3 years. That river provides water to 40 million people in 7 states and parts of Mexico. In the nation's midsection, there's a drought down on the farm.
Farmers in Kansas, the nation's biggest producers of wheat, are killing off their fields amid a severe drought. They're betting the grain won't be worth harvesting. Steve McLeod farms near Newton, Kansas.
We're just hoping that we can harvest something. It's going to be very, very short as far as stature. It's not very tall. It's going to be a challenging harvest.
The U.S. wheat supply is at a 16-year low. Kansas farmers are expected to abandon about 20% of the wheat acres they planted last fall. Jim Crisula, CBS News.
Well, CBS's Sarah Ewald-Weiss has the latest look at how people feel about the money they have on hand right now.
73% of adults reported they were doing okay or living comfortably financially last year, around the lowest level seen since 2016. The share of adults who said they will be able to cover a $400 emergency with cash was 63%, down 5% from the high set in 2021.
And checking Wall Street right now, the Dow is down 52 points. The NASDAQ is up 58 points. This is CBS News.
There are over 10,000 reasons why steel is not sold at Lowe's or the Home Depot. There are over 10,000 authorized local steel dealers. Find yours at steelusa.com. Lowe's and Home Depot trademarks of their respective companies.
News brought to you by Gingras, Thompson & Wachs, your personal injury attorneys with over 35 years of experience. GTWlawyers.com. They're all in to win.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matnair. Here's what you need to know. A Burlington teenager is dead after being struck by a train Sunday afternoon. Officials say Jack Myers was riding his bike when he disregarded warning cross signals and tried to cross the tracks anyway, at which point he was hit by the train. Myers was a junior at Burlington High School. The department is working with Canadian National on the investigation. A plan being considered would remove a section of Interstate 794 and replace it with a service street is getting pushback from South Milwaukee, Cudahy, and St. Francis. The communities say the change would significantly increase traffic times and also mean the loss of a Milwaukee Transit System freeway flyer route. Milwaukee's Downtown 2040 comprehensive plan includes possible future plans to demolish a part of the freeway along Clybourne Street between Lincoln Memorial Drive and 6th Street. The project would add surface-level street ramps. I'm Jane Matnair. This is Civic Media News.
Accidents can be life-changing, no matter how careful you are. But with Gingras, Thompson & Wachs, you're not alone. For decades, they've been fighting for the rights of people just like you. They'll let you focus on your recovery while they handle the legal complexities. If you or a loved one has been hurt or killed due to someone else's negligence, contact them now. You may deserve compensation.
All into it, Gingras, Thompson & Wachs, GTWlawyers.com.
Okay, let's get real. Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired at your dead-end job? Want to stop worrying about money, health insurance? Get peace of mind right here, right now. Here's your chance to earn while you learn. Get smart. Call Smart Local 18 to learn how easy it is to be happy again to go to work. No matter what your situation is, everyone everywhere deserves an opportunity. Call now. 262-798-1818. That's 262-798-1818.
Larry, it's your mom. Did you know the Civic Media Network covers the whole state of Wisconsin? They can help your business get the word out, whether you want to reach a smidge of folks or just want the whole kit and caboodle. Call 608-819-8255. Okay then, bye.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now. And AARP.
We're a very animated bunch.
Yes, we are.
And there is a value in actually getting to watch us and the dance moves that we have with the bumper music as it comes in.
We need a sponsor for that.
I know.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
Do you think you can tame the national debt? I have no idea. Do you think you could?
Actually, I am pretty good with money.
Okay,
I've always mainly been pretty responsible with money.
So the Washington Post has put out a quiz, and I did not cheat.
Oh, good. You didn't take it already?
I didn't take it already.
Okay.
And I actually have my laptop up at the same time, so I'm going to have us both answer separately.
Okay.
because I think we'd get different answers versus doing it together. But, since everyone in Washington seems to think that the national debt is too big, we just can't agree what to do about it. They made this quiz basically asking different yes or no questions on what you would keep, what you would cut, and how would you raise and spend money if you ran the federal government? Would you fund universal preschool, lower the corporate rate, boost Social Security payments, yada, yada. So they made a game that lets us make decisions and shows you what kind of budgeter you are. So before we do that, just a quick update as far as debt ceiling negotiations, how they're going. Not great, Bob. Not great. Despite the appearance of some progress last week, the White House and Republicans remain far apart on an agreement to raise the debt ceiling or the debt limit. And they're meeting again today. So we'll see. But the main sticking point is government spending.
Yeah.
Republicans want a debt ceiling increase paired with a decrease in non-defense federal spending, including cuts to social services. You gonna say something?
Haven't we given the Defense Department like billions and billions?
They have a lot of money.
Billions and billions and billions and billions and several other billions on top of that dollars just in the last couple of years.
And then they can't run an audit.
Right.
Yeah.
And they lose things.
Yeah.
Oops.
Democrats have accused Republicans of cynically pushing the U.S. to the financial brink to force through their cost-cutting agenda. Yesterday, Biden said the GOP's proposal would put food assistance at risk for nearly 1 million people, calling it extreme and unacceptable. The White House offered to freeze domestic and defense spending next year as a concession to Republicans, but they rejected that offer. The GOP wants more than a freeze. It wants a reduction in non-military spending.
And just a reminder that when Trump was in office, they raised the debt ceiling 3 times, no questions asked. And that 2017 tax cut for the wealthy added $7 trillion to the deficit. $7 trillion. That happened under Trump, a Republican.
Just a reminder. Okay, I'm going to see if I can share my screen. I don't think I can. All right, I'm not going to play with it live on air. All right, so we're going to play the game. So each card holds a policy decision, and I'll be dragging it to the right or left for us.
Okay.
As far as there's 19 of these, so we'll see if we can get through these in this segment. So first question: expand Medicare coverage costs $590 billion. And it would provide Medicare benefits for dental, vision, and hearing care. Yes or no?
I'm keeping it.
You're keeping it. Yep. I'm also keeping it.
Okay.
Oh, they're not in the same order. So we're just going to see what kind of budgeter you are, because
you can't do it.
It mixes up to do it as simultaneously. It mixes up the question, so It's not the same question at the same time.
Okay.
All right. Business tax: enact a Wall Street transactions tax, which raises $750 billion. Impose a 1% tax, a 0.01% tax
0.01
on trades of stocks, bonds, and derivatives. So this would be an extra tax on
trades. I can go for that.
All right.
0.01%. Okay, that seems teeny.
Yes. Environmental tax carbon emissions, raises $1.3 trillion. Enact a new $25 tax per ton of CO2 produced.
Sure.
All right.
I'm feeling spendy.
Social spending: cut Medicare benefits, saves $750 billion. Increases the premiums seniors have to pay for Medicare and raise the eligibility age from 65 to 67.
No.
Okay.
And I don't think a lot of senior citizens want to see that happen either.
No, they probably don't. All right. Business tax: enact a national consumption tax, raises $3 trillion. Adopt a 5% national consumption tax on goods at each stage of their production.
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
I worry about small business.
Okay. Children in education: universal pre-K and expanded childcare, costs $970 billion. Dramatically expand childcare up to age 2 and offer pre-K for all 3 and 4-year-olds.
Yes.
Pretty much so far we're on the same. I'm not sure that you've answered anything that I would be different anyway.
Okay, well, that's good.
Social spending. Enact House GOP debt ceiling bill. Saves $4.8 trillion. Slash spending on domestic programs over the next decade.
No.
No. All right.
No.
Social spending. Expand Social Security for low-income seniors. Costs $400 billion. It increases the size of benefits and grows payments at a faster rate.
For right now, I would say no.
Okay. Business tax. Lower the corporate tax rate.
No.
Would cost $1.1 trillion.
No.
Decreases from 21% to 14%.
Yet.
All right. Cut Medicaid benefits.
No.
Say $667 billion. Cut federal reimbursement rates for providers who treat patients covered by Medicaid.
No.
Business tax. Raise the corporate tax rate. This raises $1.1 trillion, and it increases it from 21% to 28%.
Does that cover like every LLC? Anyone who's a corporation would see a 28% increase?
I don't know. More info. What does it say? Raise the corporate. Proponents say large corporations could afford to pay more in taxes, while critics say raising the tax would stifle economic growth and innovation. It does not say what limitations there are on the size of the company.
Well, it did say large corporations. And considering that CEOs of large corporations right now are averaging, I believe it's about 1,300% more in salary than their lowest paid worker, I would say yes.
Okay. Personal tax. Enact a wealth tax. Raises $2.2 trillion. Impose a tax on wealth for multimillionaires and billionaires.
Yes. Sorry, you're going to have to wait for that 4th chalet in Switzerland. I know it's crushing. I know you're struggling, but you can make it.
Foreign affairs / foreign aid saves $148 billion. Reduce spending on international affairs outside the military by 25%.
It's a global economy. We have to have allies.
Okay, so you're saying don't slash it.
No.
Personal tax. Eliminate the estate tax. It would cost us $372 billion. Repeal the tax on estates worth more than $12 million.
No.
Okay. Social spending. Cut Social Security benefits.
No.
Did anybody already answer this? Save 100. Reduce the amount. Okay. Children education. Enact Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. Costs $400 billion. Cancel up to $20,000 in student debt for most borrowers.
20,000 would be the cap.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Get 2 more. Children in education. Tuition-free public college costs $700 billion. Provide free college tuition at community colleges and public 4-year universities and universities.
I don't think that's feasible. I'll say no.
All right. Cut defense spending. Saves $995 billion. Cut projected military spending by 13% over the next decade.
I think the military has enough money. And if they can't budget with the billions and billions and billions of dollars that they have, then they need some remedial mathematical courses.
Okay. So that's a yes?
Yes.
Personal tax. Extend some of Trump's tax cuts. Cost $1.4 trillion. Extend the 2016 tax cuts that benefited Americans earning less than $400,000.
Read that one again.
Extend some Trump tax cuts. Costs $1.4 trillion. Extend the 2017 tax cuts that benefited Americans earning less than $400,000.
Yes.
So extend them?
Extend them.
Okay. You're a diligent deficit hawk.
Oh, look at that.
Your top priority is getting our fiscal house in order. Unlike the big tax and spender, or your arch nemesis, the money printing maverick, you believe that the national debt is the foremost crisis. This is a really funny, different version of a cosmopolitan quiz. This is like a policy nerd quiz versus like, what kind of data are you?
We should send this to the Wisconsin Policy Forum and have them analyze this.
We should have them be. I just thought of that. I'm just like the quizzes we took in Cosmo. And then it gives you some kind of like quippy title. This is a little different. You are skeptical the federal government should expand social programs, but you also believe it in higher taxes to ensure that the debt doesn't get out of control. Any small increases in spending you support need to be offset with new taxes. And your policy choices would cut $3 trillion from the debt over the next decade. That is 5% of the projected figure. So there you go.
I think that's a reasonable outcome.
Yeah. But that's a really fun little quiz you can go do. And I think it's, again, reading those numbers off.
Can't even wrap your head around it.
It's like, what is 1.1 trillion versus 400 billion? And it's a huge, huge difference. But just like, I feel like the money needs to come with bar graphs to start to actually visualize when you think of those like incomprehensible numbers.
Yeah.
How much one thing is versus this other very expensive thing.
Yeah. We'll use M&Ms or something.
Because just reading them off in those questions, it's like they just start to sound the same.
It's so much money.
It's so much money. Yeah. All right. Well, if you're a Succession fan, you may know that Milwaukee has been part of the plot line for this final season of that hit show. And Ann Jacobs actually did an interview with WISN on part of that plot line and what would actually happen in real life if that storyline were to happen in Milwaukee. So stay tuned. We will play that and talk about it when we come back. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
But it can help us achieve all the dreams we want, like this microphone that we're recording on.
We're all familiar with the 3 whats. What is it? What can it do for me? And what does it cost? At Country Financial, we can help you find the answers with insurance coverage to help protect what's most important to you, all at a price you can afford. So while you're juggling work and kids while trying to keep an eye on your future, we'll make sure we're one of the first ones there when you need us most. What should you do next? Call Matthew Holbrook, your Country Financial representative at 414-332-2137 and chat about your insurance needs today. 414-332-2137.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Direct from the Dairy State, it's Sharp Cheddar Weekends, a 3-hour block of Wisconsin-produced radio, Saturdays and Sundays from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m., featuring Raised in Wisco with Joel Clayfish and Danielle Fairman, The Cripes Cast with Charlie Behrens, and Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, Gilbert Brown. You can enjoy it by the slice or enjoy the whole darn thing. Sharp Cheddar Weekends is radio so fresh, it squeaks. Listen in on the Civic Media Station or on the app.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Partly cloudy skies this afternoon with highs around 79. Southeasterly winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies again tonight, lows around 52. High temperatures reach up to 82. Tomorrow, sunshine mixed with clouds at times. Dry with temps well below average Wednesday and Thursday, and highs in the low 60s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 73 degrees.
Welcome back. This is welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. This is Kristen Bry.
That's what this is.
She is Jane Nair, and you don't watch Succession, right?
I've watched a couple of them. They're all so unlikable. I want them all to fail.
Yeah, but part of the show is watching them.
Yeah,
go up and down and fail.
Yeah,
and
but some of them are going to skate away just fine, and nothing will happen to them.
Yeah, well, it's some of the best writing and acting It is really good. I agree with you that it's just all of them are awful people. And it also just makes me sometimes watching that show makes me think of how realistic in those powerful circles of politics and media and tech and like, because Kara Swisher does the official Succession podcast, and she is arguably the most influential big tech journalist in the country. Like she asks the best questions. Like she is kind of on again, off again with Zuckerberg or Elon and how much they want to talk to her, and super smart. And so it's interesting when you listen to the podcast when she recaps the shows and goes, so it's a combination of interviewing either some of the crew, creator, showrunner, cast, but then they also interview like a real life person about a situation that happened in Succession.
Oh, fascinating.
So like this season, there is a very like potential merger happening. And she interviewed a past CEO of Twitter, but he's done a bunch of different things and like talking about how these mergers typically go. It's a great podcast, but it's also like in that one specifically talking about the egos and how much of the show is relatable to people in those spheres. And it's almost like how the show Silicon Valley, which I certainly recognize some of my experience in, but that same CEO, he consulted on that show, which was a comedy. And there was things that he did not give the writers team that they just came up with organically, that then he would get texts from people being like, I can't believe you told them that.
Oh, wow. I didn't tell him.
And so I always think about that when I watch this show of like, who would actually want to live in this world? And yes, like there's so much money at stake. There's a lot of power at stake, but just being surrounded by awful people all the time.
And you have to fake it. I know.
Anyways, so in the last 2 weeks, Milwaukee, Wisconsin in the Wild has made an appearance in this very, very popular show because they are in a fictional election, a fictional presidential election has happened. And it comes down to a fire at the central count in Milwaukee, where 100,000 votes get burned, get destroyed. And so ATN, which is basically Fox News in this world, calls it for the super scary right-wing candidate. And now in the show, they're going through all of the legal ramifications of that. So obviously, I think people had mixed feelings because we're still a little scathed by the election was stolen in 2020 and Milwaukee and all of
the
that.
election deniers.
But WISN interviewed Ann Jacobs, who is a member of the Wisconsin Elections Committee, and just to talk a little bit more. Let's play a little bit of it.
All right, here's the first clip.
So if it happened in Milwaukee and if it's deliberate, then it's mankiness, no?
False flag could be.
You can't just say false flag.
In like 1960 and in year 2000 and 2016, these unbelievably close election moments kind of keep on coming in the US. So it felt legitimate to have another one.
That was the showrunner. This is a clip from Ann Jacobs talking about what would happen if this scenario happened in the real world.
I thought that the show writers did a very good job of getting a lot of the details about how Wisconsin elections work and how central count here in Milwaukee would work. The one thing that I thought they didn't quite get right is in the show, they said that they couldn't know who had successfully mailed in or submitted their absentee ballots. And that's just not quite true. Here in Wisconsin, our clerks, like the City of Milwaukee clerk, are able to scan in the barcodes of all the absentee ballot envelopes that are received. And they do that, and then it immediately goes into the computer system, the statewide computer system. So we know whose ballots have arrived pretty quickly after they come in. So that was one thing they got wrong. And it sort of plays into their plot, which is we have no idea whose ballots they are. We really would know whose ballots had burned up.
So that was kind of the big difference as far as there is tracking.
Yes.
And actually, as a reminder for anyone who has ever voted absentee, you can go on myvote.wi.gov and watch your vote get counted. Once you mail it back in, you can actually go on that site and it checks it off as far as we have received your ballot.
Yep.
But then what was also interesting is because now the major plot point of the show is what happens. And truly, I didn't know if some kind of accident happened in Wisconsin where 15,000, 20,000 votes can make the difference. If something happened where 100,000 votes were destroyed, what would actually happen? So she answered that as well.
Terrific question, and everybody's asking it. And the reason nobody's answering it is really nobody knows. We would have court case after court case. We would be in state court. We would be in federal court. My suspicion is we would wind up with some sort of amended deadline for resubmitting ballots or allowing people to vote. That certainly would be my hope, because if this were to happen, what you wouldn't want to see is 100,000 people completely disenfranchised. I think that would be the worst possible outcome. But do we know? Nobody knows, and I hope we never find out.
Me too.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people with you on that one, Em.
I'm hoping that episode didn't spark any ideas. So, all right. Well, when we come back, State Senator Melissa Agard will be here to talk about her grassroots tour and maybe ask a couple other questions about what's happening at the Capitol. So stay tuned. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
From As Goes Wisconsin to Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, Gilbert Brown. This is The Shaw, 540 AM and 101.1 FM, WAUK.
CBS News brief. A judge has just entered a not guilty plea for Brian Koberger, the man charged in the deaths of 4 University of Idaho students. CBS's Jared Hill.
Legal analysts say despite the strong evidence for the prosecution, there's no clear motive. Also, no actual murder weapon was found at the scene, potentially strengthening any defense.
House Speaker McCarthy pushing budget cuts. Later today, he meets with President Biden on lifting the debt ceiling.
The underlying issue here is the Democrats, since they took the majority, has been addicted to spending, and that's going to stop. We're going to spend less than we spent last year.
South Dakota Republican Senator John Thune speaks up for South Carolina's Tim Scott, who's running for president.
Tim Scott is the real deal. And he will make a great president of the United States.
CBS News. I'm Steve Hathan.
News brought to you by Gingras, Thompson & Watts, your personal injury attorneys dedicated to helping you get the justice you deserve. GTWlawyers.com. They're all in to win.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell. Here's what you need to know. 1 person is dead after a rash of weekend violence in Milwaukee. 10 other people were wounded, including 3 teenagers. Milwaukee police arrested a couple of suspects. Republicans in Washington are pushing for spending cuts in exchange for helping raise the nation's debt ceiling. Senator Ron Johnson tells Up Front on Channel 12 in Milwaukee the prospect of going into default June 1st is a phony crisis.
We have more than enough revenue coming in to pay for our debt servicing, Social Security, probably Medicare. Now, some of these agencies might have to shut down temporarily, but there's no need for a crisis whatsoever.
On the other hand, Democrat Tammy Baldwin says default would lead to interest rate hikes and cuts to crucial programs. In sports, the Red Hot Astros bring their 7-game winning streak to Milwaukee tonight. I'm Terry Bell, and this is Civic Media News.
Accidents can be life-changing, no matter how careful you are. But with Gingras, Thompson & Watts, you're not alone. For decades, they've been fighting for the rights of people just like you. They'll let you focus on your recovery while they handle the legal complexities. If you or a loved one has been hurt or killed due to someone else's negligence, contact them now. You may deserve compensation.
All into win. Gingras, Thompson & Watts. GTWlawyers.com.
Feeling down, anxious, depressed? You are not alone. According to the World Health Organization, approximately 280 million people have depression, but the majority never receive treatment. At WellPoint Care Network, they can help. Their outpatient clinic staff are both qualified and caring, not to mention highly trained in partnering with you on your healing journey. Make an appointment today at wellpointcare.org. They serve all ages, infants, children, and adults. Both in-person and virtual services are available. Learn more at wellpointcare.org.
Let Mike Crivello's Camera Center help you start your family photo album by turning your digital images into gorgeous 4x6-inch prints on 2 for Tuesday. Buy one print, get the second free, up to 100 prints. In-store only at 181st and Blue Mound.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page or Squarespace or Google My Business or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Madnair, and we are going to be talking about why prohibition doesn't work with probably, I don't know if you would call yourself this, but I would say one of the biggest advocates for legalizing weed in Wisconsin, at least at the Capitol, State Senator of the 16th District, Senator Melissa Agard, who is also the Senate Democratic leader, is back. Welcome back to the show, Senator.
It's really nice to see you.
So, on 420, you know, that notorious holiday, you launched your grassroots tour, roots spelled as in the roots that you take on a road, to push for legalization of marijuana in Wisconsin. So what has been the goal of that tour?
So we have already visited 3 communities in Wisconsin. We were in Green Bay. We were in Platteville, and we were in Wauwatosa, and it is really clear that people in Wisconsin are completely frustrated by the lack of action by my Republican colleagues here in Madison. Folks know that Wisconsin will be safer, that we will have more prosperity, and that our personal liberties would actually be protected with the legalization of cannabis. Close to 2/3 of the people in Wisconsin support responsible adult usage. And we also know that, and this was before Minnesota boldly legalized weed on Friday, that even before that happened, that adults over the age of 21, over 50% of them live within 75 minutes of a legal weed dispensary. And people in Wisconsin are taking advantage of those legal weed dispensaries. You go to them, the parking lots are full of Wisconsin's cars. So clearly, people are taking time out of their valuable days and spending their valuable and hard-earned dollars to travel to other communities to buy legally regulated cannabis in those communities and bringing it back to Wisconsin, where they may face very harsh penalties because of the laws that are in the books here. It's not a matter of if this is going to happen, it's a matter of when. And I very much believe that we should have a homegrown Wisconsin solution to prohibition, as opposed to a solution that would come from the federal government. But as the days tick by, it's seeming more and more like it's going to be up to the federal government to get us across the finish line on this. But I'm going to give it the good old Wisconsin try. I'm going to keep working on this because I know that my friends and neighbors all across Wisconsin are asking for us to change our laws, and that prohibition did not work with alcohol or margarine. It's certainly not working with cannabis.
I do love that whenever we talk about this, everyone knows prohibition of alcohol and all of that. I feel like it's still less known that Wisconsin tried to forbid margarine for a long, and that margarine was it pink for a while?
They would, in certain states, they dyed it different colors, right? So, in some states it was pink, in other states it was white, and you could get a little yellow dye packet to stir into the oleo or margarine in order to turn it yellow. But yeah,
it was,
they did oleo runs.
It was oleo runs.
Yeah.
And so it's so funny because I think about it now as far as the war, like the milk wars that are happening versus the plant juice versus the
milk versus juice.
Yeah.
But back to the subject at hand. So I guess, as you said, this feels so frustrating because despite I feel like every time there is a Marquette poll, the percentage of people in Wisconsin who want this goes ticks up, ticks up, ticks up, ticks up. And I guess first question, in your 3 out of 4 stops that you've had so far, when you talk to constituents, do you run into constituents who don't want this and who do talk about what their concerns are?
So certainly I look forward to those conversations because I think if we know where people's pressure points are, what makes them uncomfortable or worried, that good law, frankly, addresses those concerns. And we have had, I would say, the vast majority of people that have shown up are scratching their heads and saying, what's the hang up? And we have had a few people that have come in and have been worried about our kids. As a mom of 4, I worry about our kids too. I think that everyone in Wisconsin, that is a priority. That's something that we define ourselves as people who care about our kids and our future. But prohibition does not make us more safe. It doesn't make our communities safer. And it doesn't make our kids safer. We know that with legalization, you can actually, in regulation, you can actually have factual science-based conversations with young people about brain development, the importance to eat healthy food and drink lots of water and exercise and put your cell phones down and don't smoke pot. But if we're not talking about it, all these young people across Wisconsin, they can gain access to weed on the illicit market in the state of Wisconsin very easily. And with the data from other states that have legalized, we're able to see that youth usage does not increase, and in many cases actually decreases or stays status quo. We're not introducing a new substance to the state of Wisconsin or to our kids. It's a robust industry. It just happens to be an illicit industry. So primarily the answer, to stick my landing, to answer your question, most people are confused about why it is that we're not moving forward if the majority of the people want this to happen. And the people that do come with a little bit of skepticism, I very much want to hear them and believe that we can address their concerns with responsible legislation.
Our guest is State Senator of the 16th District, Melissa Agard, who launched her grassroots tour pushing for the legalization of marijuana in Wisconsin on 4/20. Senator Agard, in the past, I've talked to veterans who really, really want to use medical marijuana because they are having so many bad reactions from pharmaceuticals that they have been prescribed, and they're not getting the results or the relief from pharmaceuticals that they do get from marijuana. I can't imagine the frustration for that particular group that this is just falling on deaf ears.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, with a responsible adult usage policy that has a medicinal component, which is a bill that I've championed in Wisconsin for over a decade now, we don't need to pick winners and losers. Certainly our veterans, people who suffer from chronic illness, people who are debilitatingly ill would be able to have access to a plant that does provide them with real relief. We also know that we would be able to address impaired driving, youth usage. We know that our main streets would flourish. Farmers in Wisconsin are clamoring to be able to engage in this new industry. We would be able to make a positive impact on our egregious racial disparities in the state of Wisconsin. We have the worst racial disparities in Wisconsin. Certainly legalizing pot isn't going to address it all, but it'll make a big difference because Black and brown folks in Wisconsin are between 4 and 7 times more likely to be arrested for simple possession than white people, despite similar usage. And then you add on to that our personal liberties, our freedom. Using cannabis is not going to do harm to other people in our communities. And we as responsible adults should be able to make those decisions for ourselves. So yes, those veterans, those stories, they are heartbreaking. I have heard many of them. And, folks don't want to lose access to their ability to have public benefits or to have housing or school scholarships or the Second Amendment. And with prohibition of cannabis in the state of Wisconsin, all that is on the line if someone is popped for having access to this plant in our state.
And so, and because in most of our bigger cities, Milwaukee, Madison, I think Stevens Point has even passed this, and a lot of the bigger parts of Wisconsin, it's fairly decriminalized, right? And so when you say that the harsh laws, like there's a huge discrepancy of if you are caught with possession of marijuana, what could happen to you depending on where in the state you are, correct?
Absolutely. So that's the one thing that local governments can do when it comes to cannabis policy is they can decriminalize it at the local level by making the fines less and less. So for example, in the city of Madison, the fine for possession of small quantities of marijuana is $1. In other communities, it may be $100. But that is for possession. It is vitally important that we support our local governments. Local control is super important to me as someone who came from the county board. But we have had legislators introduce a number of different policies over the years when it comes to cannabis. And one of them was a decriminalization policy that would have actually increased penalties in communities like Madison, Milwaukee, Eau Claire, Monona. The list goes on and on. Where the fines would be in the hundreds of dollars as opposed to the work that was done on those local levels. So the devil's in the details with all policymaking. And I do think that the fact that local governments are looking at decriminalization, one of the only tools they have in their toolbox, we should not be taking that tool away from them. But we should also, as the state legislature, be following their lead, listening to the people of Wisconsin. And Kristen, as you pointed out, the number of people that are actually prohibitionists in the state of Wisconsin is pretty slim. The data on a national level is a little bit more available to us than at the state level, but it's looking at like less than 10% of the people in our nation believe that cannabis prohibition is a good idea. Even in Wisconsin, the majority of Republicans now support responsible adult usage and certainly medicinal policies as well. So, once again, the will of the people should be the law of the land. There's a laundry list of these policies. No one is unfortunate. It's not that people are picking on just cannabis policy. There's a long list of policies that are not moving forward in Madison because of partisanship in the legislature and the inability of the Republican Party to hear what it is that the people of Wisconsin actually want.
Well, and speaking of that, Senator, I'm curious in some of the stops that you've made, I assume some constituents have tried to reach their lawmakers, and I'm curious what kind of response they're getting back from them, if they respond at all.
Yeah, so when I go into a community, I welcome members of the legislature, even if they're from the other side of the party, to join me. So far, my Democratic colleagues have welcomed those invitations and have joined me at the grassroots tour stops. I haven't had any Republicans do that. I'm looking forward to this Thursday being in Eau Claire, and then next Thursday I'll be in Wausau. We have 2 more stops before I'm going to have to slow down on this tour and roll up my sleeves and be present in Madison for the budget deliberations. But the response has been overwhelming. People want us to continue. I hear their voices, and I will be embarking on round 2 of the grassroots tour later this summer, and look forward to hearing from folks. Maybe some of your listeners have ideas on where it is they would like me to stop, because certainly we're not having public hearings in the Capitol on this issue, and hearing these stories, whether it's from the veterans or from the small business owners or the farmers, hearing them firsthand, make sure that this policy that I am working for is really of for and by the people of the state of Wisconsin.
And so I guess that to end there, because as you said, at the pace we're going, it's likely going to become legal federally before we legalize it in this state. And so does that kind of get at the heart of why it's still so important to do this, is just to continue to beat the drum to show how popular this is, to not roll over, to not just throw your arms in the air. I was like, well, we can't do anything because the Republicans have control of the legislature. So until they move, we might as well just try to work on stuff that actually might happen. Like, what is, in the minute that we have left, why is it so important that even if it's feels like it falls on deaf ears to keep banging this drum.
Wisconsin's an island of prohibition, with Minnesota just legalizing. The governor is set to sign it next week. Illinois and Michigan have legalized. We know that this is highly popular in the state of Wisconsin. The people of Wisconsin deserve to be heard, and I hear them. And they deserve to have a forum to share their dreams, their thoughts, and their concerns about this policy to make sure it is drafted in the best way possible for all of us. I very much believe that the people of Wisconsin are my bosses, and I look forward to every single one of these conversations with our friends and neighbors. And I'm not going to end until this is actually the law of the land.
Well, we appreciate your work and your fight, Senate Democratic Leader Melissa Agard. We can't wait to hear your progress, and good luck in the Capitol, because we know it's always spicy there. Great having you.
Peace out.
All right, we'll be back in just a minute. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Sitting downtown in a railway station, one toe over the line. Down in a railway station, one toe over the line. Sitting downtown in a railway.
Real Chili's been serving up mouth-watering goodness to the people of Milwaukee since 1931. Their famous secret award-winning chili recipe is the same as it was back then, and a local treasure. From lunch to dinner to late-night breakfast, Real Chili has you covered. And now you can bring the Real Chili to your next party, tailgate, wedding, or office gathering with their unbeatable catering options. And don't forget about their Real Love party packs, perfect for small groups, and pick up from their 2 convenient locations, downtown Milwaukee and near Marquette University campus. Visit them at realchili.com. That's realchili.com.
From the kennel to the coop, whatever the season, Fleet Farm has everything to keep your animals happy and healthy. From training your pup to sit season, to mastering those retrieval skills season. From clipping your horse for competition season, to keeping the backyard birds well-fed season. And of course, loving your pets like family season. There's a reason people say, if Fleet Farm doesn't have it, you don't need it. Because we have it all. Fleet Farm, built for real life.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times this afternoon, with daytime highs approaching 79. Southeasterly winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies tonight, lows around 52. 82 tomorrow, mainly clear skies. Dry and turning much cooler Wednesday and Thursday, with highs in the low 60s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 73 degrees.
So a story, depending on how you read this, I feel like this is either a redemption story or a horror thriller, because a traumatized orca called White Gladys may be behind the rise in killer whale attacks on boats in the Atlantic Ocean, scientists believe.
This is crazy.
So you have to remember, whales are mammals.
Not sharks.
Not sharks. Killer whales are very smart. Dolphins, very smart.
Yes.
So while most orca interactions with boats are harmless, there's been a spike in aggressive behavior towards boats since 2020, biologist Alfredo Lopez Fernandez told Live Science. As Insider recently reported, there have been 3 cases of distinctive black and white creatures sinking vessels by ramming into them.
Yep.
So it seems like orcas may be imitating this aggressive behavior from other killer whales. with Lopez Fernandez saying that one female named White Gladys could be the culprit. So experts believe White Gladys may have had a critical moment of agony, such as colliding with a boat or being trapped during illegal fishing, Live Science reported. This event may have traumatized her and caused her to start ramming other boats.
Not going to happen to me again.
And so is it bad that there's a part of me that's kind of like, all right, White Gladys, like after you got traumatized, like I get it. Like I get it. And you're like, oh, not again. We're not doing this again. You're going down. I like, you taught myself how to ruin your boat. And now I'm going to teach my friends.
Exactly.
So stay out of here.
And my friends' kids. And I have a little clip from Australian television, also speaking to a marine mammal expert.
Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Orcas attacking boats. People have literally seen this happening over the last 2 years. This has been documented a lot more frequently than one would think.
Well, do they know what the boats are, or do they think that there's something else? Are they actually innocent in this, or are they conniving?
Well, I would say that they definitely know what they're doing. And researchers have published a preliminary study just showing that they're attacking more sailboats than motorized boats. So if you're a sailor out there, sorry. And if your boat is around 12 meters on average, well, a killer whale in that area is likely to come for you.
Is it fair to call them conniving? I think that's an unfair assignment.
Scripture?
Yes.
Calculated?
Intelligent.
Intentional?
Intentional.
Intentional. They have purpose.
Yes, in doing
this. This isn't an accident. They're like, oh, right into the boat. Sorry about that. Let me go on my way. This is
intentional.
I am trying, because you think about it every once. There was one video last week that was terrifying. There was like a motorized kayak or something, and they had a GoPro or some kind of video, and a big I want to say
big butt shark.
Big butt shark came in, and they think the whale, the shark probably thought it was a seal, because as the way that, like, same thing with surfboards, often from the bottom they look like a
could be
oblong looking seal. Yeah. But this video of this shark that comes out of the water and tries to take a bite out of the kayak, and like shockingly the kayak didn't flip over,
which is amazing.
But that seems like, oh, I was trying to eat you because I thought you were a seal, and then he left him alone when he realized he wasn't, versus orca, who sees the boat and is potentially intentionally saying, I'm going to F your boat up.
Because of what happened to me.
And so if this keeps happening, what protections do the orcas have, do you think? Because, I mean, it's international waters, right? If this is just in the Atlantic Ocean.
Well, I believe it's happening primarily in the Strait of Gibraltar. So I don't know, but those are still right? Those are still international waters. So I don't know.
Because, I feel like so often when it comes to wildlife, there's this push and pull, when we think about when there is coyotes, or there's, the different wildlife that gets into. Did you see that I saw on Reddit, there was 2 deers just walking down downtown Milwaukee this weekend.
Are you seriously?
Yeah, I'll send you the picture. Literally like downtown Milwaukee, 2 deer, like 2 does. And so it says a lot for our nightlife.
Yeah.
How busy downtown Milwaukee is on a Saturday night, that 2 deer just like chilling, not scared, just walking down Wisconsin Ave. But you know what I mean? As far as the protections that go into sometimes euthanizing bears because they're in campgrounds or whatever.
And they keep going back.
And so like in this situation, like if the orcas keep flipping boats, who's going to call for, I don't know, doing something about the orcas so that boats can do their thing versus the protection of the orcas to say, like, boat at your own risk?
Well, isn't it already pretty much boat at your own risk?
I guess that's maybe, is that part of like the inherent adventure of boating, is that a wave may come and just capture you and then
can be
goodbye.
Sharks. There can be. And Google says all killer whale populations are protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act.
So you're just SOL, I guess. Boat at your own risk.
Get a bigger boat. Because if they're, and I find meters very confusing. A 12-meter long boat. I don't quite have the vision of what that means.
It's like
if it's 30 feet, I have a better idea of how big that is.
I think that's about similar. Isn't there 3 feet in a meter?
You're asking me.
I always forget how close a yard versus a meter is because they're basically about the same. Yeah. I wish we would have been taught the metric system.
12 meters is 13 yards.
12 meters. See, they're very close.
They are pretty close.
Anyways. All right. Well, I'm Team Orca on this one, mostly because I don't go boating in the Atlantic very often. So this is not my problem. And go White Gladys.
Can you imagine just how terrifying that must be?
Oh, to be on the boat when it's
to be
happening?
on the boat
Terrifying.
When you're getting rammed. And as far as I know, while the boats have sunk, everybody's made it back to a shore. So it's not like she rams your boat and then you sink and then you're floating there as she swims around taunting you.
I know. Too bad there's a writer's strike right now because the White Gladys revenge thriller could be excellent.
Someone's working on that already in their time off.
Someone's already plugging it into AI to see if they can.
You bet. Come up with a script. Let's get this into production.
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk to Laura Bray, who is the Vice President of College Advancement and External Communications and the Executive Director of the MATC Foundation, about Milwaukee's leaky pipeline to higher education and what all of the local higher education institutions are doing to work together to try to fix it. So stick around. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Miss our conversations on air? Join the discussion on our social media channels. Find Civic Media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also find social media for specific shows and hosts on our website. Go to civicmedia.us.
You're listening to The Shaw, WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266DR Waukesha, and always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is the story of a very...
This is CBS News on the Hour, presented by Indeed.com.
I'm Steve Kathan. New court action.
State of Idaho versus Brian C. Koberger.
As a judge has entered a not guilty plea for Brian Koberger, the man charged with killing 4 University of Idaho students last year. CBS's Jared Hill.
Prosecutors allege Koberger went to the house in Moscow, Idaho in the early morning hours of November 13th last year, stabbing Madison Mogan, Zana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, and Kaylee Gonzalez.
We know that he was arrested based on cell phone data, based on the make and model of his car, and based, very importantly, on finding his DNA on a knife sheath that was found at the scene.
Legal analysts say despite the strong evidence for the prosecution, there's no clear motive. Also, no actual murder weapon was found at the scene.
Well, President Biden plans to meet later today with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy about the debt ceiling. McCarthy on Capitol Hill this morning.
You got to understand, why are we here? Why are we at this last moment of time? Two main reasons. The president ignoring the problem, refusing to meet. But secondly, ever since the Democrats took over as the president, they have spent too much money.
Campaign launch today in South Carolina for Republican Senator Tim Scott.
I'm running for president of the United States of America.
CBS's Robert Costa.
On the endorsement front, Senator John Thune of South Dakota, the Senate's number 2 Republican, is throwing his support behind Senator Scott. Sources tell CBS News that Scott and others are getting into the race now because they want to make sure they have enough time to build support before that first primary debate in August.
The family of LaShawn Thompson, the man who died last fall after 3 months in Georgia's Fulton County Jail, released their own autopsy findings today. Family attorney Ben Crump.
Based on the timeline provided, LaShawn Thompson suffered from severe body insect infestation. That's bed bugs biting him.
Family says the cell was bug infested. The cause of death was listed as undetermined by the county medical examiner. Facebook's parent company Meta says it will appeal a record $1.3 billion fine from the European Union. CBS's Vicky Barker in London.
European privacy regulators claim Meta, for years, illegally stored data about its European users on its servers in the U.S., where the regulators claimed they could potentially be accessed by U.S. spy agencies.
On Wall Street right now, the Dow is down 103 points. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ, though, are higher today. This is CBS News.
Find your next great hire with Indeed. Their hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates all in the same place. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
News brought to you by Gingras Thompson and Wachs, your personal injury attorneys with over 35 years of experience. GTWLawyers.com. They're all in to win.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane McNair. Here's what you need to know. A 14-year-old girl killed in a crash early Sunday morning. St. Francis police reported a car being driven over 100 miles an hour on 794 around 2 a.m. Minutes later, officers sent to 794 in Pennsylvania Avenue. The car was found flipped over on the embankment. The 17-year-old driver was performing CPR on the 14-year-old who'd been ejected. First responders continued those efforts but weren't successful. 2 others treated at a local hospital for minor injuries. The driver later arrested for OWI. Milwaukee Bucks forward Wesley Matthews teaming up with Madison Public Schools Foundation to raise a minimum of $250,000 to cover the gap between what Madison schools' budgets can cover and what they need to offer up-to-date PE classes and make it easier for kids to afford being involved in sports. Matthews played sports at Madison Memorial. He's seeding the fund with $50,000 of his own money and matching up to an additional $50,000. I'm Jane McNair. This is Civic Media News.
Accidents can be life-changing, no matter how careful you are. But with Gingras Thompson and Wachs, you're not alone. For decades, they've been fighting for the rights of people just like you. They'll let you focus on your recovery while they handle the legal complexities. If you or a loved one has been hurt or killed due to someone else's negligence, contact them now. You may deserve compensation.
Call into them, Gingras Thompson and Wachs, GTWLawyers.com.
The 4 most dreaded words. My computer is down. Oh boy, that bites. Remain sane. PC and Bat together will fix the pain. Rated #1 PC doctor in Southeast Wisconsin. Great service, great rates, and fast service with no trip charge. Experts with PCs, laptops, network servers, protection, backups, and can even help you remotely. Click PCandBat.com or call us at 262-706-3235. That's 262-706-3235. Remain sane. We fix the pain.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Your home for local news, weather, and sports across the airwaves and
Welcome to the 1 o'clock no sour haha funny hour. No sour happy fun time haha power hour. Welcome to the no sour fun time haha power hour.
Oh, she did it.
I got it.
I think she's got it.
By George, he's got it. By George, he's got it.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
Well, welcome back to the third hour of As Goes Wisconsin on this Monday, the 22nd. So you'd think that when it comes to higher education options in Southeast Wisconsin, that there would be a little bit of competition between the different institutions. But with the leaky pipeline of Milwaukee area students choosing not to enroll in any kind of higher education after high school, there has been an increased effort to actually replace the culture of competition towards collaboration with each other, and see if that could kind of encourage more kids to tackle the obstacles of enrolling in higher education. And so here to talk more about that is Laura Bray, who is the Vice President of the College of Advancement and External Communications and the Executive Director of the MATC Foundation. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you for having me.
We're so excited to have you. And it was funny because I asked you at the break, because Bray, so your name actually phonetically makes sense as it rhymes with gray. My last name's Brey. Looks like it should rhyme with the other way you can write gray, but it was randomly Bry. So
I thought we might have more in common than we do, but there you have it.
There you have it. So I guess before we jump into the different programs and what the collaboration looks like right now, what are some of the statistics about Milwaukee's college pipeline?
Yeah. So what's really interesting is that many people realize that there's just less people that are 18 or 17 coming into the college pipeline, just sheer demographics. And there's a lot more people because of the baby boomers leaving the workforce at the same time. And so part of the challenge that everyone in the country is facing is that just less people were born 17, 18 years ago. And so what's interesting about MATC, Milwaukee Area Technical College, and in a lot of ways, the other colleges that are a part of our state system, is our average age at MATC is actually 28, 29.
Interesting.
So, but we also have a way for individuals to get right into the college coming straight out of high school. So a lot of people leave high school, may not go ahead and get a degree right away, but then they come back to MATC realizing in order for them to advance within their profession, they have to have some training. So we really try to devise strategies. And I'll give you a couple of statistics so you get a sense of it. So in the state, one of the statistics you hear is 60% of the jobs in today's economy require a degree beyond high school. In Milwaukee County, only 37% of our population has a degree beyond high school. So when you look at the workforce gap, even eliminating, the challenges of having less 18-year-olds, just our sheer population, it's 130,000 people that with some training really could help both with their families and get better earnings, but also help to fill the jobs that are there. Another statistic that was done by a partner organization called Milwaukee Succeeds, they looked at the graduating class of all schools in the Milwaukee area in 2012, 13, and 14. And they looked at how many ended up graduating and completing their post-secondary degree, so either associate's degree or bachelor's. In Milwaukee in 2014, it was only 14%, whereas statewide it was 41%. So it gives you a sense of we're really needing to have, even though there's a smaller population, we have to make sure we're throwing everything to support those students, either directly out of high school or as they work in the workforce to get them back in school.
And so what do you attribute that discrepancy, that huge 14 to 41% discrepancy?
Yep. I mean, there are a lot of challenges in the Milwaukee, in many families in Milwaukee. And, we have some of the biggest gaps in terms of equity gaps in the nation.
Yeah.
And that goes all the way, we're really trying to look as a group, and I know I'll talk a little bit more about M cubed, but the thought is there's such an emphasis right now on creating better systems from cradle to career, so that we're really walking alongside individuals throughout that, because a lot of the students that we are working with grew up in generational poverty, or they've been told that they're not college material, when really college material and career material, it's the same thing. Like, people who have come here again and again and said, I might not have been a successful student, and we say, welcome, open our doors wide, because what we find is the kind of support that we're able to give, the one-on-one assistance that faculty and our retention coaches and others start to build a confidence in a student to say, you know what, I can do this. And as a lot of times the things that are coming at individuals that are growing up in difficult situations, that they aren't given the pathway, or they're not given the examples around them. So there's so much complexity with what leads to that number, but we're really focused on trying to eliminate some of those real gaps.
Our guest is Laura Bray. She's the Vice President of the College Advancement and External Communications and Executive Director for MATC Foundation. And we're talking about Wisconsin higher education institutions going from competing with each other towards collaboration with each other.
And so it's funny that you say that, as far as the I've been told that I wasn't college material, because I think there's so much, and I certainly came from the family, and I didn't go to college right away, but the idea of when you can just when you have the privilege, the luxury of just focusing on school and high school, versus having to work, versus having to take care of younger siblings, versus having just family stuff at home that you're taking care of that distracts you from getting all A's, and somehow that gets conflated with you're not smart enough to go to college, which is so not true. It's just that school takes work, and sometimes your attention is divided, and not every kid has to deal with that. And so it's important to keep that in mind as far as who feels like they're college material and why do they think that.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we're trying to underscore is, I know, there's a lot of opportunities for like advanced placement, and Milwaukee has always been a strong international baccalaureate. We have several high schools that use an international baccalaureate system, where they're able to have a lot of individuals that get access to college credit early. And one of our president's kind of guiding principles is, why does AP just have to be for those that are at a certain level? Why can't we make early college more accessible to everybody? And so we have partnerships like with Milwaukee Public Schools and with UWM through this thing we called M cubed, and it really aligns our three systems together, where students that are coming from MPS have options to take college courses earlier, and it isn't as dependent upon their GPA. It's about their excitement for the potential of a career. And what we've seen students do is they've come in, and they might have been a so-so student or whatever that means, and they come in and they're completing their nursing, practical nursing technical diploma before they even walk across the stage at their high school. And there's oh yeah, that happened multiple times. In fact, we had 2 people that just completed this year. Last year we had someone got national recognition for that work. And it's why can't getting involved in something that's practical, that's career-based, starts to cinch up, oh, I get why I'm having to learn math. I understand the applications for science and my English class. And, when people talk about customer service and I'm working a job where I'm, working at Culver's, I get that now the transition to careers, because I have more practical experience to a career, not just. So we're trying to create more and more of those opportunities. And a great example is this College Connections program that we built through this MQ partnership partnership. So I'll just tell you, we started it and the participation has grown from 32 students to 152. And the graduates, check this out, have saved more than $1.5 million in college tuition by completing those credits while still in high school. So they're able to take college credits here at MATC or UWM, and they're able to do it in 3 pathways where it's just healthcare. There's one for people that want to become educators so they can start to work on their education degree, which we need more educators.
Yeah,
absolutely. And then the third one is just to start to knock out your college prerequisites so that it can transfer anywhere. So we're trying to like fast track people through those kind of programs.
So what does it take to qualify if you're a high school student and you find out about this program? You said it's not like AP courses where it's a grade or anything like that. So like for kids or teenagers who find out about this, like what does it take to get involved?
Yep, I might have to. Can you ask me a different question?
We'll bring that question back on the other side of the break because we have to go back and so you'll have 2 minutes to tell me what it is.
Excellent.
But as far as let's do that. Let's because I would love the couple questions I'm still interested in is how kids can get involved, and I guess also just the history of like because the collaboration started in 2014. It's been going on for about 10 years, right?
It has. And then 2017 is really when we started to supersize it with a lot of much more formal programming. But yeah, it's been really important for our entire community.
Absolutely. So our guest is Laura Bray, who's the Vice President of the College Advancement and External Communications at MATC and also the Executive Director of MATC Foundation. And when we come back, we'll have some more questions or answers about M-Cubed, the program that is a combination of UWM, Milwaukee Public Schools, and Milwaukee Area Technical College. If you have any questions about the program, feel free to text us 844-967-2789, and we'll be back in just a minute.
Okay, let's get real. Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired at your dead-end job? Want to stop worrying about money, health insurance? Get peace of mind right here, right now. Here's your chance to earn while you learn. Get smart. Call Smart Local 18 to learn how easy it is to be happy again to go to work. No matter what your situation is, everyone everywhere deserves an opportunity. Call now. 262-798-1818. That's 262-798-1818. With one call, the Civic Media Network of stations can deliver your business's message to the entire state of Wisconsin or your hometown. Marketing plans that work for your business. One call can do it all. Civic Media, 608-819-8255.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Join the conversation with your favorite hosts or shows anytime. Follow Civic Media on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Share your thoughts on our social media channels wherever you are, whenever you want. The Civic Media Network of local radio stations here for you.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times this afternoon, with daytime highs approaching 79. Southeasterly winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies tonight, lows around 52. 82 tomorrow, mainly clear skies. Dry and turning much cooler Wednesday and Thursday, with highs in the low 60s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 75.
Up in the morning and out to school. The teacher is teaching the golden rule. American history and practical math. You study them hard.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Matnair, and we are talking to Laura Bray from MATC, talking about M-Cube, which is a program that is a collaboration between UWM, MATC, and MPS as far as helping more Milwaukee area kids get college credit and enroll in higher education, both to help themselves, but also to help our workforce. Because if you listen to this show, you are already acutely aware that we have a labor shortage in a lot of different fields. And so a lot of these jobs that need higher education, we need people to be taking that coursework and fulfilling those careers. And so I had asked before the break, Laura, as far as how the kids, like if you're going to an MPS school, you hear about this program, what does it take to actually get involved?
Yep. So I'm going to tell you this, that tomorrow, I just looked on the website, is the deadline to apply. So
okay,
if you are a parent of an MPS student who is a junior and on track to graduate in during their senior year, this is what they can have. There's a soft recommendation that students have a 2.75 GPA, and that's the beauty of it. It's a soft recommendation. Okay. So these students are students that are doing well, they're passing their courses, but they don't have to be a 4.0. The general pathway program is the one that the deadline is tomorrow. And it's a full senior year program with the opportunity to earn up to 21 credits in core subject areas. And it's just broken into their course day. And so we've kind of figured that out how to do it. So I just want to alert people to that. And the other piece is, and I can send you this so you could put it on your website, there's a new program for summer of 23 where we have MPS education internships. So those that are interested, current juniors that want to explore the possibility of education, there is a opportunity to apply for that as well. So you can get in right away. So that is it's a really great program and a great partnership.
And so is it just basically once you're in the program, if there's some of the requirements you would have had left on to take classes you needed to take in order to graduate from high school, some of these just replace those?
I believe so. So that's something that, there's a Q&A and all that information, but basically they've designed it in a way that you're able to get some of your high school things met while earning college credit. And there's no cost to students.
That's what I was reading. So it's basically, in the collaboration, it's like the school, so the MPS program pays for lunches and a couple of things. MATC pays for bus passes. So it's even like a shared cost between the institutions, right?
Yep.
Which is it's so interesting to me because I feel like the bigger conversation across the state, like we've talked to people from MAT for the technical college system. We've talked to people from the UW system, and some campuses are closing. Some campuses are trying to figure out everyone's trying to figure out enrollment. Everyone's trying to figure out labor shortage. And it's like, this seems like such a great program as far as other areas across the state starting to implement this, as far as for students who think of college as something else. Think of it as a 4-year institution. Think of it as academia. Think of it as something that's like, I don't like school. And I think what you were saying in the last segment, as far as making it practical, making it applicable, making it like you put your hands on something that feels like, oh, I know I need to be able to know how to write and have my grammar be correct because I have to send emails to people and have them understand what I'm trying to say. And so it's the actual application of the things we learn in high school that start to make a lot more sense versus I'm just supposed to learn this because they told me to.
Yep.
And so what do you think the room is like to replicate this program, or in general, I guess, as someone who this is your career, like how do we continue to expand access to education?
Well, that's been a huge emphasis here. You know, our tuition is definitely like a third of the cost of
Yeah.
a lot of other paths in terms of higher education, but we still find that people find it a huge gap. That 14%, you've got to believe that there is something in terms of people don't have access. And so we've actually implemented 2 scholarships. One is we have this free tuition program called the MATC Promise. But the other one is brand new, and it's the Chakotah Scholarship, where they fund full ride education for short-term degrees. So those that can be completed within a year. And I got to tell you, we have an opportunity where for every $1 donated to that new scholarship, they will match it with $2. So it's Ellen and Joe Chakotah. And so there's information at matc.edu/scholarships, and you can find out all the information there if you want to apply or if you want to donate to this really, really unique full ride scholarship to remove financial barriers.
That is awesome. So sir, I'll put that. I'll put matc.edu/scholarships. Any other information, Laura, you want to send me to put on our website? Absolutely, shoot it over.
Awesome, thanks.
Because this is the kind of innovation I feel like we need, as far as like collaboration, innovation of institutions working together and actually collaborating to make like a bunch of win-win scenarios. And so I'm so happy we get to spend time talking to you today, Laura.
It was great to meet you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to maybe hear your stories as far as some of the best or worst wedding catering you've experienced. And how would you feel if you were served Chili's? Yes, Chili's. Or I guess we could do Applebee's or TGI Fridays.
Sure.
Culver's. At a wedding. Would you like it? Get some chicken fingers? All right, we're going to talk about it when we come back. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Right into the slot. You gotta hear something that's really hot. With the one you love, you're making romance. All day long you've been wanting to dance. Feeling the music from head to toe. Round and round and round you go. Hail, hail, rock and roll. Deliver me from the days of old. Long live rock and roll. The beat of the drums loud and bold. Rock, rock, rock and roll. Feeling is there, body and soul. Rock, rock, rock and roll. Feeling is there, body and soul. Oh.
Rock kind of like going round and round on the floor at Waukesha Skateland, except without the rental skates. Know what I mean? This is the Shaw, WAUK.
CBS News Brief. Brian Koberger, who suspected of killing 4 Idaho University students last year, has pleaded not guilty. CBS's Danya Backus.
Prosecutors allege Koberger committed the quadruple murder at a house in Moscow, Idaho, November 13th. More than 6 weeks later, in Pennsylvania, he was arrested at his family's home.
President Biden's jumping back into debt negotiations today with a tight default deadline. CBS's Nancy Cordes.
Economists warn that default could put millions of Americans out of work and push the country into a recession. Social Security checks could be delayed, and the nation's credit rating could be lowered.
South Carolina Senator Tim Scott is running for president.
We are not defined by the color of our skin. We are defined by the content of our character. And if anyone tells you anything different, they're a liar.
Scott's a Black Republican. He says he wants to cut spending and restrict abortions. CBS News Brief. I'm Monica Ricks.
The Civic Media Network of radio stations across Wisconsin. We are your hometown radio, refreshed.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell. Here's what you need to know. The U.S. could go into default on June 1st if stalled debt ceiling talks don't make progress. Wisconsin Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin says default has to be off the table.
It hurts real people. The economic consequences, interest rates, increasing the downgrading of our credit rating as a nation, very, very serious matters.
Baldwin on Up Front on Channel 12 in Milwaukee yesterday. Republicans are pushing for spending cuts in exchange for helping raise the nation's borrowing limit. A Madison teenager is looking at federal computer hacking charges. Investigators say Joseph Garrison stole $600,000 from people on online gambling websites. Garrison could spend close to 60 years in prison. In sports, the Red Hot Astros bring their 7-game winning streak to Milwaukee tonight. I'm Terry Bell, and this is Civic Media News.
Feeling down, anxious, depressed? You are not alone. According to the World Health Organization, approximately 280 million people have depression, but the majority never receive treatment. At WellPoint Care Network, they can help. Their outpatient clinic staff are both qualified and caring, not to mention highly trained in partnering with you on your healing journey. Make an appointment today at wellpointcare.org. They serve all ages, infants, children, and adults. Both in-person and virtual services are available. Learn more at wellpointcare.org.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Bry.
The issue with Milwaukee schools, just not enough high-quality schools.
Weekdays 11 to 2.
You can talk about everything else. You can talk about the funding. You can talk about school choice and for it or against it. But there's not enough Hope Christian schools. There's not enough St. Marcus schools. There's not enough Kings. There's not enough Reagans. And until we fix that, Milwaukee Public Schools really isn't going to change.
As Goes Wisconsin with host Kristen Bry on Civic Media and the Civic Media app.
Hey, Dan Kelly, you went around the state saying there had been fraud and the election should be overturned. You did that. You took $120,000 in pay from the Republican Party.
We served Chili's at our wedding, and this is how much we spent. Our total cost for our wedding food was $1,950 for 99 guests. This also includes 5 specialty meals that we did for people who were gluten-free, dairy-free, aka me, and people who needed like special items like no dairy at all, only seafood, etc. So let's talk about what went into serving Chili's at our wedding. First of all, we loved the price point. I mean, you really can't beat that price point. Like, you just can't. It's insane that we only spent that much money for our wedding food. But we did have to do a lot of work on the back end that we weren't really expecting.
What did you serve at your wedding? 844-967-2789. And I'm sure depending on your age, how much it cost would be, there's going to be a huge discrepancy.
Absolutely.
But that clip came from a TikToker named Madison Mulkey, who posted a video that has ignited a bit of a debate on wedding fare and staff compensation. But in the video, as you started to hear, Mulkey explains how she pulled off major savings for her wedding by catering the reception with takeout from Chili's. Which, to be fair, yeah, I've had some bad wedding food, so maybe, Chili's could be pretty good.
I feel like chili. I mean, there were other options, as she mentioned. They made some accommodations, but as she also mentioned, they did have to take on some extra work themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So here she is explaining that.
We had to pick it up pretty early because we didn't want to pay for the delivery fees. And it was St. Patrick's Day weekend in Savannah, Georgia, which is where we got married. And they were packed. They were so busy and they had to have it ready earlier in the day, which is okay with us. But we had to have someone pick up the food and take it all the way to our venue. We had to have my aunt, who thankfully works in food service, or we would have been SOL, set it all up, write specific sticky notes, show everyone how to warm things, to cook things appropriately so no one got sick. And that was just a lot more work than we had anticipated. Normally, when you order from Chili's, they deliver it, they bring it, they set it all up. It's already made. People can just serve. But for reference, we picked up the food at 11 and we weren't serving the food until 6. So we had some time in there. We had to keep things cold, and then we had to have our hired like servers who were really supposed to be like cleaning, serving, preparing, really do a lot of the cooking. And my coordinator kind of had to show them what to do and take on a role that she wasn't really supposed to do, and they weren't supposed to do either, but everyone made it work. Thank goodness.
Isn't it? It's not cooking. It's called heating.
I think
the food is cooked.
But I'm interested in how, so if you got it at 11 and was already cooked, how was it still good at 6?
Well, you refrigerated. You keep it refrigerated until about 4:30. And then you put it in those big warming trays and you let it warm up.
And
you had to teach people how to do that? Who are you hanging around with?
Well, no, it wasn't. It was staff. It was staff. And so you seem very skeptical about this, Jade.
Well, there's a couple things that I think are applicable. Because if I wanted to do this as fiscally responsibly as possible, I don't know if shorting the guests is the right way to do it. You could get a lesser cake because cakes can be ridiculously expensive. So can flowers, can be ridiculously expensive. I think there are other places where you could cut corners. If you expect people to give you a $150 wedding gift and you're feeding them takeout from Chili's, I can see where some people might be annoyed by that.
But what if you could also just as easily get a caterer who it's more expensive and the food's just as bad.
Granted. But then at least the guests aren't going to go, well, the guests will say, God, that was terrible. What an awful caterer. Instead of going, God, they really cheaped out on food and went to Chili's.
So what did you have at your wedding?
We had a buffet. I think we had chicken and some kind of beef. And then we didn't get a cake because I think it's a ridiculous waste of money. So we had a dessert bar instead of a cake.
Okay.
It was my wedding. I didn't eat that much anyway.
Yeah.
And from what I heard, everything was fine. But that was one thing that we had an open bar.
Yeah.
And I do think there's an expectation, but at the same time, you want these kids to be able to afford to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
You want them to, spending $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 on a wedding is insane.
How much did you just say?
$15,000, $20,000, $25,000.
That's like
is that the low end now?
That's what we spent. The fact that we got away with spending $20,000 on our small wedding. Photographers alone are $6,000, Jade.
Oh, see, and I got mine real cheap.
So I think you just had the reaction my mother had after years of going to other people's weddings and coming up with all the ideas that she had for my wedding, her only daughter. And then we got to the wedding planning and Mike and I were like, this is the budget we're going to stay within. And the limitations that creates is people, I think the way you just said, how do you spend 50? People spend $75,000-$100,000 on wedding these days.
And that's lunacy.
And so, but there's also, depending on what you're going to do, there's no way around it. This is what we did for our wedding. And that's what let's just be honest of what we got for $20,000. And this is with Mike being an event planner for the last 15 years in Milwaukee, who had connections. So we had, we stayed overnight at the Pfister, just the two of us, my dress. But the actual ceremony was 15 people at Sanger Gardens, which we got for $500. So the venue itself that we actually got married at was $500, which is cheap. We had a videographer, we had a photographer. We probably didn't need both, but our photographer specifically was incredible. So I don't regret that money. Then we met up for drinks at the MATC with some of our close friends. Then we went to dinner with the same 15 people who were at the ceremony.
What did you pay per plate? Do you remember? For 15 people, that's not many.
150, 175.
A plate?
Yeah.
Could you eat the plates?
Yes, we all ate.
Okay.
And then we rented out a bar and had an open bar. And we had some food there. We had late night pizzas, which people definitely ate. But because we had told, it started at 8 p.m. Yeah. So most people ate dinner before they came. And there was some finger food there, but we did have an open bar and we had a DJ. And that was like, we didn't go over the top, and that was on purpose. And so like weddings are expensive. Like, some of the comments I saw in that video, like you can spend $10,000 just feeding people. Wow. And so to a certain extent, if the food tastes the same, and if it was from Chili's or some other caterer, I don't have a problem with the how much she spent on it. Because I didn't care about spending money on food because I never remember the food at weddings.
I agree with you.
And so, but like so often with our industry, like in like the wedding industry mindset, like they have you. And so they like gouge you.
Well, and they can sell you on all kinds of useless trinkets that you're never, those, personalized matches, personalized napkins, all of that kind of stuff can really add up. And I have bad news for you. People throw them away.
They do not hold on to them.
No, they don't. And even the little favors that you take with you I think that's a waste.
But and so I'm interested for you listening. What did you serve at your wedding? 844-967-2789. If you're willing to share how much you spent, but also what year was it?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, if you have if you're planning on feeding people and you have 50 to 150 people at your wedding, what options do you actually have to spend $2,000 on feeding 99 people?
See, and it being Wisconsin, I've always been kind of surprised that no one has come up with the concept of potluck weddings. It would be so God. Wisconsin. Everyone just brings a dish, and then you don't have to bring a gift. Someone will bring the fluffy fruit, the fluffy salad, the fluffy Jello salad, and someone will bring, their favorite tuna casserole and brownies.
I bet someone has done that on like a small scale wedding, but as a big like 100-person thing, it's harder for me to imagine that happening. But I don't hate it. I don't hate that idea. You just have to make sure you have enough variety of things.
True.
Everyone's got a sign-up sheet.
Only so many fluffy Jello salads. They go a long way.
But yeah, I'm interested to hear, what did you serve at your wedding? And if you want to share how much it costs, just because, as we just exampled in real time, I think that there's a big discrepancy now between generations of how much people understand weddings to cost, to that, like the different parts of weddings and how much they cost these days if you want to kind of have a more traditional wedding. And so like, I'm not mad at her for going to Chili's. It just necessarily, I just brought up the question as far as like, what do you serve people like these days, and then not get totally gouged, especially because I stand by the fact that no one remembers the food.
Yeah, I think you're right. 844-967-2789. What did you serve at your wedding? Or is there a memorable meal you had at a wedding that was spectacular? Or are you like Chris and I and you never remember that stuff? Mark from the SAC is joining us. Hey, Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know but I can't even remember what we had at my wedding. Was divorced, 7 years later. So, but I mean, there's potluck funerals. They do potlucks at funerals.
That's true.
Potlucks at weddings. I mean, they used to do that. I think years ago, that's probably what they did, is when people had a wedding, that everybody bring a dish to pass to celebrate the new couple, and people didn't worry about it. I mean, that I can remember years ago, churches having potlucks all the time to raise money, or groups, and then some of that food was pretty good. I mean, is at least as good as some of the stuff I served at weddings I've been to. So
definitely.
Oh yeah,
no problem.
It's probably now, Mark. It's probably more of an issue of health. And good heavens, what if someone gets sick from Aunt Verna's tuna casserole, and then we're really going to have issues? So I would imagine that might be the sticky part of having potluck weddings. But I just think it just seems so Wisconsin to me.
So Wisconsin.
Thanks for the call, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
And I guess if you did it in a backyard, you could get away with that.
A barbecue kind of thing.
But that's another way that they get you. Because if you pick an event, certain events will only let you cater from certain places. And sometimes it's tied to like where the ownership is either the relationship they have with another caterer, or they own the catering company. So you can only use this. This is the food that you have to use if you're going to get here. And they got you.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing. It's like, I don't, for her, like, it's like if you get it. Fine. I just was interested as like, what other creative solutions could people come up with to feed their guests at their weddings? Like ours, I think I liked how we did it. We were, because yesterday was 9 months since our wedding. And so Mike and I were talking about it, and I was like, I liked what we did for our wedding.
Oh, that's what matters.
Yeah.
844-967-2789, 844-96-PARTY. What did you serve at your wedding? 2012 venue was a community center, $500, I think. 90% of the 40 to 50 attendees were family. We did potluck style.
There you go.
We had a video photographer team and a DJ. Overall, I think we got away with it for $2,500.
Wow.
Maybe less.
Good for you.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. 50 people. I'm assuming that's not including the dress.
I don't know.
Well, then maybe
it was
something off the rack.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think, and it'll be interesting to see if there's a swing towards that direction, just because weddings have gotten so out of control.
Seriously.
And this vision, and like that's the thing that always came back to me is like, this idea that it needs to be perfect or it needs to be Instagrammable or whatever, of just like, and it goes so quickly.
Yes.
And then it just becomes another day. Like it's a magical day and you get your photo books made out of it and it's wonderful. And hopefully it's wonderful. But it's also like, it's one day. And that's a lot of money to spend.
It is a lot of money. And I will, at least from my experience, and again, we got away with a really inexpensive photographer who was a neighbor to one of my sisters. Anyway, the vast majority of those pictures are still in a bag. I got a bunch in frames. We have thousands of pictures that I'm never going to put into a book. I've never looked at them.
You never look at them?
No.
That's sad. You should look at them this weekend. When's your anniversary?
It's in September.
Do it in September. Go through the pictures, Jane.
All of them?
Some of them.
Okay, I'll go through some.
All right.
I'm such a sentimental.
If you would like to join the conversation, what did you serve at your wedding? Or what's the best or worst meal you've had at a wedding? 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. We'll be back in a minute. That's 844-96-PARTY. We'll be back in a minute. 2789. That's 844.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
The Civic Media team would like to say congratulations. More than 200 Wisconsin businesses and nonprofits are receiving a free advertising campaign through our one-day $1 million advertising giveaway. If you missed out, our local sales team would still love to help you with your own campaign. Go to civicmedia.us and click on the sponsorship tab. Again, civicmedia.us and sponsorship. New and still growing. Advertise today with the Civic Media network of radio stations.
Saturdays and Sundays at 1. Don't miss Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, featuring legendary Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. Football, life, and fun.
Earl, you've been driving a Yugo. They just gave you a brand new Ferrari with turbo boost. So enjoy it, brother.
Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, Gilbert Brown and Earl Ingram. Saturdays and Sundays at 1 on the Civic Media Network and on the Civic Media app.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Highs level off around 79. This afternoon, under partly cloudy skies, southeasterly winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Lows level off around 52. Tonight, partly cloudy skies, mainly sunny skies and calm. Tomorrow, highs around 82. Dry with temps well below average Wednesday and Thursday, and highs in the low 60s. For Civic Media,
the food was amazing, and other people said so too. I mean, they could have been lying to us, but we had chicken tenders, sliders, we had egg rolls, chips and salsa, Cajun chicken pasta, we had salad. I mean, it was the perfect meal for our wedding. I'm so happy we chose Chili's.
See? Her guests were happy.
That's what they told her.
I'm just saying.
You don't think there were a couple ants behind
But
it?
you don't think those ants would have been doing that no matter what?
You're probably right.
I mean, I feel like the people who are judgy about wedding food are going to be judgy about something no matter what happens.
Well, and I certainly hate to think of young couples starting out 30 grand in debt.
It's hard enough to buy a house.
Well, and I'm assuming there's school debt and there might be car loans. And so, yeah. And as you said, who remembers the food? Unless it was really, really terrible.
See, I do think that people, and maybe this is the Wisconsin of me, I do think people remember whether or not there was an open bar.
Oh,
more than they remember if there was food. They'll remember if there was food or no food, but they don't remember how good the food was or what was served, but they will remember if there was an open bar or not.
Ding, 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 ding. I think you're right on the nose with that one. Yes.
Because that becomes another thing as far as there's a whole other etiquette conversation to be had as far as open bar, cash bar. How long do you have the open bar? Do you just do beer and wine, but cocktails? Like, so our one rule, mostly because we just know who our friends are, was that it was an open bar besides shots.
No shots.
So we have one friend who is a bit of a party animal who, even though we had an open bar, but no shots, somehow managed to rack up a $350 bill at our wedding because he was buying so many tequila shots that he's the only person who walked away with like multiple hundreds of dollars of a bill because he kept buying shots, and that was the one thing he couldn't get for free.
844-967-2789. 844-96-party. What did you serve at your wedding? Is there a wedding that just had spectacular food that you will never forget? Travis joining us from Pierce County. Hey, Travis, thanks. What do you want to say?
Hey, well, one thing, my wife and I got married 18 years ago at Lambeau Field.
Nice.
And yeah, back then it was reasonable. Now I can't even imagine how
Yeah.
much it cost. But we spent with food. We had 130 people, and it was about $22 a plate.
$22 a plate.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
And was it? I mean, how was the food, Travis? Do you remember?
Back then, it was amazing. So, we went with chicken breasts and stuff, and the food was great. Beer was a little expensive, but
Which did you go with, Miller? Do you remember what kind of beer you had?
Well, of course.
Of course.
Is there any other?
Touche. Touche.
So, all I can say is we went through our first half barrel between the wedding and the start of dinner. So
nice.
And it was fun.
How many more half barrels were drank after the dinner?
Only 2.
Okay.
So
that's a respectable Wisconsin wedding.
We were done by 10. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice. Well, thanks so much for the call, Travis.
Really appreciate it, Travis. Thank you. 844-967-2789. If you want to check in, what did you serve at your wedding? What did it cost? We only got a couple minutes left.
Only got a couple minutes. I have one message on the YouTube live stream from Paul. We did buffet style, but what killed us was Wisconsin Health Code doesn't allow packing up buffet leftovers, but plated meals can be.
What?
That's weird.
That is weird. So if it's served at the table, I can get a doggy bag for my leftovers, but if it's from the buffet, I can't do that.
Yeah, that's weird.
That is.
So it's just like that food. That food goes to waste.
What a shame.
We have so much waste in our country with food. So I got this one on Twitter. We had a chili bar at our wedding. We found a caterer who replicated my dad's family recipe. The meal was in honor of my dad, who had passed several years ago, along with a separate vegetarian option. I don't remember the exact cost, but it was inexpensive compared to other catering options, and people loved the theme. The food itself was fun. The food itself and fun topping options: jalapenos, goldfish crackers, etc. Sure. While there may have been some debates, not diabetes. Read slower. While there may have been some debates, no physical altercations over whether or not you should eat noodles in it.
Oh, eat
it on noodles. Sorry.
That can be a very contentious issue.
I know. People get very
Noodles
upset
and
about
chili, look out.
That's a great idea. See, and I think that's memorable then.
Without a doubt.
Right?
This
Like
was to
doing
honor-
something that is
personal,
nostalgic, a
Yes.
tradition of some sort. Like, then, like, no one's going to complain then.
Right.
Besides whether or not you should have with noodles. But, like, that's the kind of stuff, at least for, like, my heartstrings, that, like, always go that option as far as something that is sentimental versus we need to have the best food or good enough food, or it needs to be plated or buffet or whatever.
Right.
Like something like that. Like that's a really great idea.
That is a great idea. Very clever. And as you said, very personal, very memorable. Just that's cool all the way around.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Monday show
flew by.
Done.
It flew.
In the books.
Yes.
Trying to think if we have anything.
We have Brewers tickets tomorrow.
We do have Brewers tickets for tomorrow. Yep. Brewers tickets for Thursday's game.
Yes.
And against the San Francisco Giants. And so if you would like to win some tickets and you have not won in the last 30 days, not just on our show, but on any Civic Media show.
And we keep a list.
And we do keep a list. Listen to tomorrow's show. Maybe we'll do a trivia question. Maybe we'll have you tell a story. Maybe we'll just give it to the first caller. It depends on how we're feeling. But so tune in tomorrow for Brewers tickets.
We're going to talk about childcare in Wisconsin.
Yes, that's going to be an ongoing theme, I think, for a while.
Yep.
But and then also turning whey, her curds and whey.
WHEY.
WHEY, the thing that comes from dairy, into plastics.
I'm so excited to talk
Science.
to him. I am
Science, Jane.
I'm so excited to talk to him about this. I really am.
I am too. All right. Well, great show today. Thank you for texting. Thank you for calling. Thank you for being part of the show. Stick around for Dueling Tangents with Luke and maybe Brian. We'll see. It's always a gamble.
It's a mystery.
Or the Chad Holmes Show. But otherwise, we will see you back here tomorrow at 11. This has been As Goes Wisconsin.
Oh, Cadillac car. Mink coats, des bijoux jusqu'au cou, tu sais. C'est bon. Ces petites sensations. Peut-être quelqu'un avec